Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the League of Inches podcast, Supercoach edition. I forgot to change the background so it actually looks like a Supercoach edition as well. That shows you. Look out, we're going to lift. We're going to lift tonight, and we promise to do so for you guys. It's been a big couple of days back to work and some big days. So we are going to bring some energy, pump up, and show you guys what it is all about. It's our famous now Supercoach team previews. We've got the Broncos, the Dragons, and the Titans to talk about tonight. So the threesome once again. Huge week of Supercoach, obviously. Probably changed my team another 20,000 times. Got our draft organised. We've got our draft, what am I called it? The draft order. Is now sorted for all 5 of our drafts. So that's really exciting. Our first draft is just over a week away as well, which is really cool. So Div 3, I think it is, that takes off next Friday night. So all those drafters, if you didn't get a spot or if you just love listening or watching your draft content, we will put out a post afterwards, letting you know the number 1 picks and stuff like that, the first round picks, a couple of the shock selections and things like that as well. So just keep everyone a bit informed and a bit more content around our drafts side of things moving forward. And obviously our thanks to our sponsors, Pack Lords, for that. Speaking of sponsors, we've still got a couple of areas where it is available if you're keen. Got a business, want to jump on, get a bit more exposure, please send through a message via either social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, or send me an email, joel@leagueofinches.com.au. Boys, Trav, how are you, mate? Been a long 24 hours. So I just want to make sure you're still keen, because for those that watched last night or listened to the podcast today, Trav went on a bit of a rant about how keen he was. And I know I haven't got to the comments yet. It's been a few days now, YouTube comments I haven't got to. Sorry, I promise I will. I noticed a couple mentions that they noticed how keen you were on that last little paragraph you ran through. You're still keen?
Yeah, of course I am. Yeah, that was very well said. I wrote that to a script. I knew what I was saying, strategically said what I wanted to say. The only thing I forgot during my spiel was Damien Cook, which I just didn't scroll down. But, mate, I'm keen. I can't wait. I think, and as I said to you, and as I said to everyone in that podcast, the storyline of the things that are changing is so relevant, and it's even more relevant even today, because we're talking about 3 teams that have had so many changes with new recruits and things. And so all of these new movable pieces, as I named it, is relevant across all platforms that I'm involved in with the League of Inches, which makes NRL so much more fun. So yes, I am keen, and I answered to all those. I went on there and did all that. I had a chat with them all today. So
I appreciate that, mate. And thank you to all that we've been asking for it. You're coming through a lot the last probably 2 weeks. The YouTube comments have been going off, so keep it going. We are loving it, and it's helping us grow as well. It's getting us a bit more exposure, which is awesome. Jesse, I don't even have to ask you. It's a Supercoach episode, so of course that 4-letter word comes straight to your lips.
The 4-letter word?
Keen.
Which one? I think you're talking Keeney. Talking Keanu Keeney, because we're getting into him quite soon. I'm definitely Keanu Keeney for this one. 100%. Nah, it's good, man. We're not far off now, only about a month away. So it's it's coming in fast, isn't it? We're getting right into the business end. So I'm keen to see some trials, keen to solidify my starting team, because at the moment it's empty again, because I just can't make my mind up. So I'm just leaving it blank because I don't want to confuse myself. But no, these previews are always fantastic, honestly, even for us, because the noise gets pretty loud around preseason talks, and who's hyped, as Trav likes to say, is all about the hype train, and I keep getting pulled from every direction, so I want to get a bit of clarity around it. But not far away, man. Real close.
Keen.
Yeah. Keeny.
It's a very keeny episode, this one. I can feel it in my bones. Let's get into it. Before I do, just one more time, a big shout out to our legends at the moment. The group is growing very, very quickly. We are very thankful. Obviously, it is a bit more further monetary-wise, so $2.99 a month, and you're just helping support the page and get a heap of exclusive content and things like the added entry into our giveaways, 10% off merch and things like that as well. We really do appreciate it. Loving the community in there already. It's a really good vibe. 90% at the moment is Supercoach, so it's a perfect time for super coaches to be in there. Every day people are talking about their teams, talking about different opinions, and Jesse and Trav and that are coming in with their own opinions throughout the afternoon, the nights and stuff like that as well. So it's a great time to be part of it. If you can, please, $2.99 a month. Great time before this giveaway is done on Saturday as well, thanks to Freedom Finance Con there and his team. That 2025 NRL jersey of your choice simply by going ahead, tagging a mate, making sure you like both pages, and away you go. So let's bring it up here. I've gone straight through. Hang on, that's a little bit of a preview to what we've got to come. The Brisbane Broncos. So their first 5 rounds, as we always discuss first. Again, if you are watching YouTube, you'll see now, if you're listening, that there's a YouTube, that little slideshow that we do have mentions a couple of the dot points that we will talk about and shows you the first 5 games. So for the Broncos, round 1 is the Roosters away. Round 2, the Raiders away. So they start 2 away games. Round 3 is the Cowboys at home. Round 4, the Dolphins at home. Away. And then round 5, the Tigers at home. What not a bad draw at all. Not a draw you go and complain about, I think, too much. I'm surprised they start the year with 2 away games. I thought being the Broncos would get at least a home game in there. But apart from that, I don't mind anything that screams out to you guys about the draw before we get into the players' side of things.
I've seen a lot of people hype up the Broncos start, to be honest with you, and a lot of people are very keen to get onto them. Again, I look at it and I'm a little bit mixed. Like, obviously, the Roosters, it could be a bit, could be either way, to be fair. It's round 1. Obviously, the Roosters have got their own issues round 1, so it could go either here or there. Raiders, Cows, Dolphins, Tigers, like, it's all pretty favourable for them. But again, like, what do the Broncos do? You know what I mean? Like, you saw the struggles last year with them, and I suppose things can change, but yeah, I can see the appeal for sure with them, definitely. So if we're expecting them to bounce back and be, a quality side again this year, it's definitely a nice start amongst some others.
To be fair, I actually think that that draw is incredibly good. And to add to that, the home game against the Cowboys is at Suncorp. The away game against the Dolphins is at Suncorp. The home game against the Tigers is at Suncorp. Round 6 is also at Suncorp against the Roosters again. And then they've got to go to New Zealand to play New Zealand in round 7.
That's
and then round 8, it's the Bulldogs at Suncorp. And then round 9, it's Magic Round, and guess where they're at Suncorp. So
wow, that's insane.
Yeah, so their draw is just it's amazing. It's fantastic for them. The Raiders, we know. I'll start with the Roosters. The Roosters are an unknown. We don't know what's going to happen, and I think they're going to be trying to figure it out round 1. So I reckon that's a gettable game for them. The Raiders, we know, are a young side. Anything could happen. We've got the Cowboys at home, and the Dolphins, we think, is going to be a big improvement. But still, it's at Suncorp. Like I don't think you could ask for a better draw for the Broncos, to be honest.
We will see as we dive into these players if this early draw that seems to look favourable plays into the minds of these Supercoach whizzes that we've got live on air with us. Now let's get into the hookers straight away. So we've got a cheapie right there, bottom dollar, $1.98, Cameron Bukowski. I don't think there's 5 to choose on here, so unfortunately, I don't think Cameron will get a chance this year. Corey Pakes, $232K. Blake Mozer, $312K. Tyson Smoothie, $369K. And Billy Walters, $389K, the most expensive one. There is a Mozer question. Is he a play until Mam is back? So that's Mam is back around 10. So we basically get 9 weeks of Hunt in the halves. Blake Mozer, by all reports, is training the absolute house down. Seems to be the front runner for this 9 jersey. Does that mean an 80-minute spot? I doubt it. I don't know if they'd throw him in an 80-minute role straight away, but I think it could mean at some decent minute slots. Jesse, what are you thinking here around? I guess Mozer's the big talking point about these 5 choices because I don't know. I think, it's just his time. It has to be.
Yeah, it seems like it too. And you look at the ownerships, he's 14%. Everyone else is either 1 or 0. There's very little appeal with Broncos hookers in general, I think, especially when it's been Walters and Smoothie and Pakes and that stuff rotating. A lot of raps on Moser. Obviously, 312K is like really good pricing point. There's a few good like low 300 hookers at the moment. I really think he might be the most appealing one. He hasn't played too many games of the first grade, but like his 2024 stats in reserves, he played 13 games. He averaged 63 and a half in 64 minutes, really. So he's a point a minute guy pretty much. And then in the NRL games that he's played, he's basically a point a minute guy too, but only around that 30 point sort of game. So he's definitely got the upside to him, definitely more than the other guys do, because they've shown over the last couple of seasons they just kind of plod along in a way. So the appeal's definitely there, but it's a big watch. I think there's definitely value out of him, probably a good couple 100K potentially, if he does get a good minute roll. Even if it's 60 minutes, it could be, it could be decent enough. But it just depends, really. There's a lot of ifs when it comes to these guys, and I really don't like ifs at hooker because it's already so ugly to begin with, and I don't want to have to deal with, having to deal with. It's like a Lussick from last year, or a Hands, or one of these guys that's going to split minutes. Maybe they need the full 60 to 80 to get actual points and appeal out of them. But yeah, I'll be keeping my eye on him for sure. And if it looks like he's going to get the starting 9 spot, there's probably a good chance I do start with him. It could be a good play long term. I think it's probably about due. Madge is in there now. They probably shake things up. So yeah, I'm definitely keeping my eye on him for sure.
Trav, Brisbane hookers. Talk to us.
Yeah, no interest in any of them other than Moser, to be honest, in terms of Supercoach. Billy Walters, obviously, is the talk of the team from, I've spoken to a few Broncos fans over the last sort of 6 months about it, and they're very high on Billy Walters, but I just think that was because of his dad. I think there was a little bit of looking after there. I think it's just Moses' year. I think they're ready to go, and you're not going to label someone the next Cameron Smith and not play him. So I just think you're playing with fire when you put a label like that, and then just sit him on your bench or sit him in your resis again. The problem too, and we as we said, blending both of the podcasts together of what we had last night. But as we start to talk around players who have got serious talent, who are getting poached by other clubs, Moses is one of those guys, and almost every club in the competition, bar the Roosters now because they've just got Robson, bar the Sharks who are pretty happy with Brayley, probably bar the Bulldogs who are pretty happy with Marnie, bar the Storm who was ecstatic with Grant. Moses is probably going to be a pretty high price bloke. So he's got to play, right? He's got to play. And I think come round 10, it's going to be a bit of a nightmare in what the Broncos do. So I think they've got to play Moser. I think he's got to be there in the first 10. I think what he does in that first 10 is solidify his spot. And I reckon he's going to be I reckon he might even be a hold through Origin type guy. I think that's how good he's going to be. I'm really high on it. I have become more and more high as the hype over the last week, as Jesse said at the start of the pod. I'm flying in hype trains at the moment, and I've read lots of newspaper articles over the last week, being up here in Brisbane, about how good Moses is going and what I'm seeing. And I've caught that hype train, and I'm very keen on him.
Mr. Hype Man is back, everyone. He's keen and he's hyped. Any more from Travis? I think it burst off the screen and we won't see him for a while. He's excited. It's great to see, but I echo probably both.
Freaking footy to start.
100%.
That's right.
I've never been so keen, even though I hate trials. Just put a trial on, for goodness sake. Let's watch something. I'm warming more and more towards this Blake Moser situation. Definitely for mine, I don't think I'll hold him through Origin. As soon as Mam's back, I'm worried about how much Hunt will eat into that hooker role. I think that's where he will go back. But in saying that, with unfortunately how Adam Reynolds' body has been as of late, there's probably a high chance Ben Hunt will play a lot of halfback at this time throughout the year as well. So all of a sudden, Blake Moser could be their hooker for the whole 24 rounds. So keeping an eye on all that, and we will see. But yeah, for sure, very, very high at the moment on Blake Moser.
I just think with him, everything just plays in it really nicely for him. Like, he's got 10 weeks. And Mam comes back in round 10. So if Mam comes back and they shift Hunt to the to the hooker spot. And if Mose has been dominating or playing really well or showing serious potential, Jesus, there's going to be an uproar if they do that. Moser will be on the way out, I reckon, if that happens.
Yeah.
So I reckon they'll have to fix that. So that I don't think that'll happen. So unless Moser just absolutely bombs out and shows that he's just not ready yet, like he's got the talent but just not ready yet, he's going to be there. They have to play him because otherwise they're going to lose him. So everything works out perfectly. They've got 10 weeks. They've got no bye. They've got pretty much 75% of those games in the first 10 weeks at bloody Suncorp. It's a pretty decent draw other than the Magic Round game that they've got to play against the Penrith. I mean, the Bulldogs will be tough, but that's in Suncorp as well on the back of, pretty limited travel other than obviously they've got to come back from Auckland then. Everything just screams out it's in the ducks are in a row for him. So, I just think get him now. His ownership needs to be a hell of a lot higher.
Yeah.
It'll go up a lot, I reckon.
Yeah, I think it will as well. Front row forwards, we got young gun VJ Semu, 198k. Benjamin Takura, 232k. Starting to hear a bit of talk about him. A bit of the hype train is starting to come through. He looks like he should be getting a bench spot. Martin Tapau, 353k. Fletcher Baker, the Roosters signing from last year, who just has seemed to do absolutely nothing there and was a bit of a trap from last year if we go back on that talk. 355k. Xavier Wilson has quickly shot up this price point, 447k. Corey Jensen, 520k. And Payne Haas, 669k. The top dog, the big dog. Let's go. Obviously, Payne Haas, a huge talking point here. Trav, anyone else apart from Payne Haas? And if there isn't anyone else, just get straight into it to him.
Nah, no one. I mean, this is probably more Jesse's thing, but as far as just looking over that list, I don't really have any interest. I mean, I am probably going to watch, not closely, but have a bit of a think around what Takara does and what happens there. But there's just a lot of mouths to feed and a lot of changes happening and a few things moving around with Carrigan and Hetherington and all that sort of stuff. So just don't know if there's a spot and what's going to happen there. So, the real big one here is to talk about Hasta La Vista, baby, and see how he goes. 14% ownership really surprises me. 669k is not the top bracket. Like, it's high, but it's not that top bracket. In terms of what I want to pay, like you've got Tarpany, you've got AFB. I think those two there. I think Payne Haas, with the 14 games that he played last year, I think we're getting him underpriced. And there's some definite value that's going to happen with Payne Haas. Underpriced, yet he was with an average of 68.4. So we're essentially, we could be looking at getting Payne Haas at a really, really nice price. He's certainly a big watch and see for me. I am not super keen on paying up in the front row forward, though, at this point in time. So I need to sort of try and find some money, and money at the moment is being taken away from my front row forward. So I'm not really keen on buying him, but I'm definitely going to watch him with eagerness to hope that he bombs out so I can get him when he drops, if he can drop a bit of price. But at this point, I think he's good value.
Jesse? Payne Haas.
I agree. I don't think he's going to drop at all. I think this is pretty much the lowest we'll see Payne Haas. You got to think, like, last year he was playing basically on one leg, still averaged 69 almost. So injured quite a lot of the time, obviously 14 games. It was actually his lowest year basically ever in base for him. Based 49, but 65 with power. So, an average of 68, but 65 in power. So there's not really a lot else he's doing besides just workload and a lot of it. So 1.17 points per minute. It's good stats. It was quite down on what he's usually putting out. So there's definitely uptick there for him, providing he's fit and ready to go. And obviously all this talk about him and Carrigan being in the front row together, I don't see him really dropping at all. Like, I think he's just going to either hold steady or go up. It's a good price for him. Yeah, it's a good price. It's just a lot of money to spend in your front row, but I don't think you can do wrong by it, especially not. We've spoken about their run, how Madge really settles his front row, and him and Carrigan together in the fronts are going to be insane. Probably the best pair in the comp, really, when you think about it. But there's always good like stability with Haas. I think I don't think you can really ever go wrong with him. But yeah, it's just a different mentality at the start of your team. Do you pay near 700k for a prop when you've got other options this year? Especially a lot of people are starting to spend big money in them and get away from those like mid 300-400k guys and actually spend up. He's the second dearest, I'm pretty sure, behind AFB. And I think he's going to outscore AFB. There's probably a good chance next to Terrell May. He's the highest scoring front rower again, like he usually would be. So I like him. I always am very keen to humour the idea of having him in my side. I didn't last year, but I think it's the first time I haven't, and mainly because of his body. But yeah, I like it. It's just a lot of money early days. Definitely build up for it, but I don't think you'll ever get him cheaper than this.
Yeah, sorry, I gave you a pretty shitty information when with the top price tiers. I actually thought Tarpany was a lot more expensive, which makes me more interested in him. But yeah, you're right. He's definitely the second most front row forward. So sorry for that.
Yeah, that's good.
The other thing is he's just come back off a surgery, which I think has him racing the clock to be fit for round 1 at the moment. So that might also be impacting why that number's 14%, whether some people might be surprised. I think it should be higher. I'm not too sure. I haven't once yet toyed with the idea of actually having him in my team yet. And I don't know why, if that's because there's Tino, there's May, then there's the right drop down to like your Horsburghs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I need to see it from him first. And I know that if that means I'm going to miss out on 3-4 weeks of him scoring well, I'm willing to wear that and then get him on. After coming off a year of 14 matches where he just did not seem fit almost once last year, to now be coming into another season off the back of a surgery, another one, and just been racing the clock. I don't want to hear him racing the clock again. Like, I'd rather hear he's getting rested, he's not getting rushed back. Let him chill for another 2 or 3 weeks. If it means he's back in round 3 or 4, but we get Payne Haas, like the Payne Haas, then I'm more keen for that. I'm a bit worried straight up hearing he's not 100%.
I don't know. Listening to what you just said then makes my mouth water even more. Like, you're talking last year about how he only played 14 games. He was injured, didn't do it, but he still freaking put 68.4 up. Yep. And you're telling me, and then you're saying that, like, that to me just excites me even more. And I'm like, oh man, the problem is, and the issue is that you can't have, you have to pay up somewhere around the 600 plus one spot in your 2RF. I think this year you've definitely got to have someone worth 600k in your halfback. And you definitely got to have 2 600 plus or 700 plus players in your fullback. And you're probably going to end up with at least 2 in your center wing. I just don't know if I can start with a 600 plus K guy, or 660 plus, because Terrell May's 590. But, I just can't have someone over 600K at this point in my front row forward just to start. And this is why I think TLT is going to be so important, which is why also we really need these mid-rangers like your Horsburghs, like your Whites, like your Hunts to not dominate, but really push early so that we can time it nicely where Payne Haas gets rolling, AFB drops, Tarpany drops a little bit more, and then bang, it's just straight swap, sit and forget. Like that's what I'm sort of praying and hoping for, and I can't start with that just yet. But yeah, man, it makes me so much more keen listening to what we're saying now to get him. I'm not going to start with him because I can't pay that much to start with.
I'm shocked by that because for me, I just wouldn't want to toy with that in my team and have that sitting on my non-playing reserves 10 out of the 24 weeks, if that's what we're talking about going off last year. Like, that's what I mean. I just want to see him come back and be fit, be Payne Haas and get through games solidly. And then I'm right on board. Don't trust me. I'm wanting to get on board. I just want to see him do it consistently.
I don't think there's really much to see. I think when he's just ready and he's going, it's Payne Haas. Like, there's nothing to worry about. It's like Cleary. Like, an injured Cleary is still better than 90% of the halves in the comp. Payne Haas injured is better than 99% of the front rowers in the comp. It's just the way that it is. He's the best there is. So, yeah, and he's still outgunned all of them. Like, AFB had to score
less than May, 10, and you're probably going to get the same, if not better.
Oh no, that's what I mean. That's why May's near must-have territory. That's why that's why he's 50% owned, because he is he's got the upside of a Payne Haas. But that's the thing. You look at AFB. He's got to score 10 tries to just pip him. He didn't do anything. You know what I mean? Like Payne Haas doesn't have to do that. He gets 70 in base. So like if he can free his arm a little bit more and get some, more than 1.7 offloads a game, then there's more there. He got 4.8 tackle busts per game average.
On a Broncos team that bombed out last year with all the things that happened. Like now watch them, if they can click and see what happens, you can only imagine what Haas is going to do.
Yeah, exactly. His best years, 2023, he averaged 73.5. Base plus power was 70. 22 was a 62, also another injured year, 68 in 21, 75 in 2020, 78 in 2019. So like, he has his down years and it's still better than the majority. So I think when he's going and he's fit, like you can't go wrong. It's one of the safest ways to put 650k because you're going to get at least 65, 70 points. It's like yo for your front row. So you can't knock it, but again, it's front row. So it's like, whoa, you got to watch your budget. But he's the best. I love him. So
2RF. First up, Jet Bryce 198k. Jack Jajeski 232k. Goodness me, that name gets me every time. Jaden Hunt 242k. Kobe Hetherington 338k. Brendan Piakura 402k. Jordan Ricky 471 and Patrick Carrigan 642, looking as chiseled as ever in the recent preseason picks the Broncos put up. Goodness me.
You love a chisel. You love a chisel body, don't you, Joe?
Honestly, like
every pod he talks around one chisel, man.
Fake. He's AI. I'm sorry, but he's the definition of AI. He can't be real. That's fair.
Carrigan, he's everyone's dream, really, isn't he? Gets that hair flowing, everything. Got his nails painted.
I've got to be professional. Sorry. The question is up. We've got to tackle those first. Carrigan, there's rumours of a new position. So what has been around the traps is that he's getting moved to prop. That means Hetherington will then move into that lock position as well. So to be honest, it's probably a question to answer for both of those players. Does it change how you're thinking about Carrigan, Jesse? And then after that, Hetherington at 338k. I'm almost more excited about talking about Hetherington, to be honest, because I think Carrigan's Carrigan. He's going to get through what he does. I don't think the new position changes it too much. If anything, it probably means he gets a bit more of a stint off the field, just playing in that prop forward. I'm not too sure, but and he's with Payne Haas as well. Don't forget, they can't just both play 80 minutes every week and pray that they get the Broncos through every game. Kobe Hetherington's really looking nice.
Yeah, it kind of makes them both a little bit appealing, to be fair. And obviously, what I'm hoping to see is Pat Carrigan get dual front row before the season starts. And then I will be pretty keen, to be honest with you, because I haven't really ever been too fond of him in the second row. I don't see the upside for him. I think he's very consistent in his mid-60s. But again, you want that ceiling. You want that height for it. But in the front row, I'll take that every day of the week. Carrigan's animal, man. He's played one game at prop. I'm digging some stats up, and he's played one game. He scored 92 points.
Oh,
72 in base and power. He got a try assist, a tackle bust, 2 offloads. He averaged 64 minutes. He got 64 minutes that game, and he scored 92 points. So he's priced off at 900k. If you're going off that game reference, it's massive. Yeah, it's really good. So I like it. He's super consistent though. Like you look at all of his games, he's always going to pump out 65, 70 minutes. I don't know how that really changes when he goes into the front row. He probably drops down a smidge, but I don't think they really need to worry too much. They know he can do it in the middle, like he's a lock. He can definitely play prop for 60, 70 minutes if they have to. So it's no biggie for them. And it's Carrigan. Like there's really nothing really to go past. It's very consistent. It's like Haas, so I can see why they're going to be doing that move. But it does open the doors to Hetherington. He's not been a really big points per minute guy ever. And that's going off, mid-30s, 40 minutes here and there. So if he can keep a 0.7, 0.8, which is pretty much where he'll sort of chip in at, there's definitely value there for him, but it depends on how many minutes he gets. And if not, does Carrigan rotate with him? Does Hetherington get a stint off and then Carrigan goes to lock and they do this little three-way cycle between them. Like, I just have to see that. I'm not super keen on Hetherington. I don't think his game's very super coach friendly, but again, upside is there if the minutes come. But yeah, man, Carrigan could be very tempting if he gets that front row for sure.
Talk to us, Trav, about these 2RF Broncos players, and there's probably only two.
There it is. To me, it's only the two. Hetherington is certainly an interest. I'm not interested right now with just what I think is going to play out across the league in terms of cheapy prices and things. If TLT happened and comes about and we're limited with our rookies and Hetherington's name to start, I think you almost have to. It'd be a must start to have. But I think at this point in time, with what we're hearing, he's not a must have. And I think 12% is quite high owned. So I think that should be a fair bit lower, but can certainly rise depending on what other teams are happening in terms of the Supercoach play come TLT. And Jesse hit the nail on the head in terms of what he has and in terms of his points a minute. Last year, he played 23 matches, averaged 40. He got 34 points. Like it doesn't scream out greatness. He's not a Carrigan guy, so like he just doesn't play like Carrigan. I just don't think anything. I don't think he even links to anything that Carrigan can do, which is why Carrigan was so good at that spot. Carrigan is a workhorse, right? He's just your awesome, just amazing workhorse, and Carrigan will literally run himself into the ground, right? He'll just run and run. That's why he's such a good leader at that club. That's why they've made him into that sort of position, why he does what he does. And he does so bloody good at it. He's one of the better ones in the competition because of that. And because of just his pure heart and work rate, he gets the points. Now chuck him into a front row forward. I can see upside in terms of at least another 3 to 4, maybe even 5 points on average better. And if Jesse's hopes as well as mine come out that just before the competition starts and he gets his dual FRF, I'm throwing him into the 2RF and waiting a few weeks, and eventually I'll just trade it. I'll swap him straight into front row forward and bring in a gun 2RF, and that'll save me trades galore and save me a whole heap of headaches that I don't have to worry about. I'm so keen on that. So I think Madge is making a really good choice there, and I'm happy to watch and see how that goes. I'm pretty keen to put him in 2RF if he changes. If he doesn't and doesn't get the duel, am I still interested in Carrigan? I am. What round is it, Jesse? Remind me that they're going to look at the duels again.
It'd be 6.
Round 6. So, like, he could be a good trade-in target then. I probably no, because now I'm thinking about the draw. Now I'm looking at the draw. I'm like, if he's going to go, I'm talking myself more. Yeah, I'm talking myself more and more into. Well, no, Origin doesn't bother me. At this stage, that's 12 rounds away.
But if you're planning on buying him in round 6 and they've got the buy in round 10 or something like that, I'm not too sure what round their buy is in, and then you've got Origin a few weeks later, you kind of miss that appeal. I really think he does get it from the start. To be fair, like 12, yeah. So it's you're going to lose him for a good chunk of the middle of the season if you're buying him in. So you get him on nice 12, 5, 6 weeks out of him tops, and then you've got to lose him for half the season. So, like, I don't know. I can see the appeal. I like it. I'm looking into Hetherington a little bit more, and I'm starting to think he just screams a bit of trap territory, to be honest with you. I think of all the games that he's played starting lock, there's only been 11 over the last 3 years prior. I didn't do anything last year, obviously, because Carrigan was everywhere, but he's got a 50 odd minute average game per thing, and he averages about 40, 45. Like, he might make maybe 100k tops, providing he's the same as he was a couple of years ago. There's got to be a big uptick in effort. Offloads, there are none. Tackle bust, there are none. It's just super basic tackles and then pass it on. So there's not a great deal there. I'd really want to see something out of him, but even still, looking at that, he's not for me, actually, even with that spot. I think the boys are just Carrigan and Haas and forget the rest.
I mean, until one of them gets injured and then someone has to carry the load and then someone else becomes a huge potential. Brendan Piakura was spoken about so highly last year. This time last year, you could not meet someone who didn't have him in their team. I think he's been a little bit forgotten about in a way, because I actually feel like to start the year, seeing that draw is awesome for him. I think having Reynolds and Hunt in the halves is great for their edge as well, because it'll add experience to them both. And it'll help, especially Piakura, who did show glimpses at times that he is that player that people are hyping him up to be. It obviously didn't equivalent in the end to the Supercoach game, and he just very rarely had a really great fired up game, so to speak. And I had a few head knocks as well, which didn't help in there. I do like to think with this experienced halves pairing, I feel like we might be able to get a bit more out of Brendan Piakura, especially to start the year. Anyone? Something?
I don't think he's forgotten, because I think everyone remembers, and that's why they haven't picked him.
Perfect.
I just can't. I just can't. Nah. What did he do? 65 minutes on average last year. He averaged, and he got 41. Like, even with the head knocks, he's still putting up 65 minutes on average. So at 0.6 a minute, I look, as much as probably the appeal of the eye test shows that he's a solid player, I don't think it's resulted in Supercoach. It's an awkward price at 400K. And for that, I don't actually think at 65 minutes is he going to get much more than 40, which means he's not going to really do anything for you. He's just going to plod along. There's other dudes out there that I'm very high on in terms of, your Finafuakis and Horsburghs, your Whites, even Suawong. Like there's way too many options there around those prices. Or just go and try and find 60K more and get Gilbert. I think Piakura is an avoid.
Yeah, I think he's a hard avoid as well. Average of base stats, mid-30s, not even that actually last year. So, look, he scored more than 50, 38.1% of the time, more than 60, 14.3. There's no upside there. He just doesn't do it. And the minutes obviously lack a little bit. It's too much headache from last year, too much heartache as well. I think 4% is probably too many. But watch him come out round one and just brain the Roosters, and everyone flocks to him, and then goes back to Piakura of last year. Not for me.
All I'll say is this: do not forget the fact that the Broncos were dog shit last year. People are hyping him up this year, saying they're going to be a much more improved team. That's got to translate all over the park, in my opinion. So I'm not saying he's a must, anything like that. All I'm saying is I have a weird feeling he might become a bit more, like I'll say it right now. It would not surprise me by the end of the year, he's into the mid 50s as an average. That's what I'll say right now on him.
It would blow my mind if he is.
I think he has he's a young player. He's got some. Had no confidence last year in a team that was absolutely beaten to a pulp by both teams on the field and everyone off the field. He had no confidence. He can certainly play, get his head knocks right, and have a set sort of halve with him that has experience. I can see them being a little bit of sneaky options there. But again, do not start with
mid-50s is an enormous call. Yeah, mid-50s is an enormous call.
That's what I'm here for. Halfback, Kobe Black, 198K. That guy is a freak. Cannot wait to see him finally get a chance, because goodness me, he can play. Jock Madden, 467K, who looked like he had this spot down pat for at least 10 weeks until big signing came along. Adam Reynolds, 500K as well. Looks like he's racing the clock at the moment to even be fit for round one already. His body's in the wars. For mine, not a single option here is an option. Not interested at all.
Yeah, agreed.
Nope. Yeah, definitely not. Not for me.
5'8". Josh Rogers, 390K. Obviously, he played a few games last year. Bit of a miss to fix it. I don't know if we'll get much of him at all this year. Ezra Mam, 494K. That huge suspension hanging over his head. Still say it. He's lucky to be playing at all this year, in my opinion. Ben Hunt, 5'8" as well. 603K. Again, I just have no interest whatsoever in any of them.
Someone does at 1% on Ezra Mam, so people just need to. Maybe that's just someone's picked him and has forgotten that they've picked him. But
That's an autofill team, that one.
yeah, so that's a bit odd. But I'm no interest in him. And even when he returns in round 10, do I have any interest? I'm going to sit there and watch him. Ben Hunt at 603K is owned by 4%. So that's a big pod for those people who have got it. I can sort of see it, I think, because they're going to have to rely on him so much. And they're getting him in to try and help Reynolds. And the more that he can help Reynolds, the hope is that Reynolds survives longer. So I can kind of see what's happening. I'm not interested at this point in time, and that's expensive for what I know of Ben Hunt, and I need to see Ben Hunt's attitude change, and hopefully that does, because now he's at the Broncos. But I just need to see it, so it's a wait and see for me. But even then, I'm still probably not interested in Ben Hunt.
Yeah, I'm not interested at all in Mam, obviously. When it comes to Ben Hunt, like you look at the 5'8" bracket in general, obviously it's quite thin, but the 600K is kind of where the majority of them sit. I'll call Lockie Galvin at the top tier of that price point because he's 624. You got Cameron Munster at 609, Hunt 603, Dearden 597, Luai 582, Cody Walker 559. There's a lot of options in that price, and Ben Hunt's not really the one that screams out to me. But the draw's nice. Yeah, pretty much. The move to the Broncos has probably been about 3 years overdue. So, there's a lot of anticipation around it. I can see him doing well. I don't see any upside in his price. I think you're basically getting him capped. But you're getting a 5'8" that's going to be there for quite a while in that spot. A halfback playing 5'8" essentially. So, I can see it. It's just, I don't know. There's so many other options. I just went through 6 more players that I'd rather have than him at that same price. So, it's a lot. It's a lot for him.
With his pricing as well, and obviously the last few years, and even last year's 61.6 average, can we not let anyone forget the fact that at the Dragons, it was literally him. It was only him, and it was him setting up tries for Lomax. At the Broncos, there is Reece Walsh, there is Adam Reynolds, there's potentially Blake Moser, depending on what sort of role he gets to play. Then you're thinking of their outside backs, you're thinking of Payne Haas, your Carrigans. There's a lot of players to spread the ball around for, and I just don't think he'll be getting the chances that he was getting at the Dragons, where he's literally the guy. I just think there's too many now to be the guy there at the Broncos and be getting that same average consistently there. Unless Reynolds gets injured, Walsh gets injured, then maybe we're having a different conversation. But until that happens, I just can't see it.
I think him not being that guy might actually benefit him, to be honest with you. You look how good he plays for the Maroons. He's so solid all the time. That's why they keep going back with him, because he's just freaking Mr. Reliable everywhere he is. Maybe he just picks his chances a bit better, and he makes the most out of his runs, because he was obviously the guy. Every single thing the Dragons did for the last however long have been through him. So give him a minute to just compose himself, get it done. I can see it working out for him. I just don't see an increase. I just think his game probably just refines a bit. But last year, 58 average, 55 in 2022, 67, 51, 61, 51. So it's very consistent for him. It's going to be either a 50 or a 60, very far off, not much above, not much below. So no upside in price, but just a career path.
The St. George Illawarra Hunts. That's basically what they were for so long.
Pretty much.
Centre wings for the Broncos. So we've got young gun Israel Leota, 198K. I wonder if he's related to the Penrith Moses Leota. That'd be pretty cool to find out. Deloise Hoyter, he's a bloody machine. Have you seen some of the photos of him in this preseason? He's, goodness me. 232K. Hayes Perham, 294K. Jesse Arthurs, 341K. Katoni Staggs, 514K. Dean Mariner, 530K. And Selwyn Cobbo, 550K. I don't have any of these in my team. I haven't thought about putting any of these in my team, but am I missing anything here, boys? Is there any options here? The one I've got a little think over is Selwyn Cobbo if he's on the wing. I think if he's on the wing and he's playing wing, there's potential there. But again, like I said to a few of these Broncos players so far, I need to see it first because I just cannot trust where I feel like Selwyn Cobbo's been the last 12 months. He just plays footy, doesn't want to play footy. Like, it's just, I don't want to deal with that at the moment. One, there's other centre wings in this game that we're playing that seem much safer options.
I'm not keen on any of them actually. If there was going to be anyone that'd be keen on, it'd be just going somewhere cheap and getting Jesse Arthurs, and even that I don't like at all. Again. Because I did that again, yeah. But either way, like you talk about Cobbo on the wing, like he's a revelation compared to him at the centres or even fullback. Cobbo on the wing in his 40 games he's ever played, they average 57. Cobbo in the centres 54, and Cobbo at fullback 55. So there's no increase, there's no difference. He's just his base is always low 20s, which doesn't change no matter what position he plays. The minutes are always the same. He plays 80. He's just, from the eye test, he's just lazy. And I don't like that a lot at all. So if I'm going to be going for a lazy winger who just bangs tries, I want more than that. Because there are a fair few of them with really low base. I'd just stick with like a bloody Khan Pereira or something. At least, you know, you got something exciting to watch because I don't like watching the Broncos in general. I don't think the wingers have a great deal of upside. They kind of just finish the opportunities. I like Dean Mariner, to be fair. I think Dean Mariner's got a great game about him, and I like seeing how he just plays in general. But again, not enough for me to want to buy any of them at their prices. There's a lot of options in the 500s. Not one Bronco is on my radar.
Trav, anything different to say?
Nah, not really. I sort of did a bit of a dive onto Jesse Arthurs and thinking around what that is. But, I mean, he's 8% owned at the moment. I guess the only reason why is because they think he's locked that spot and he's 340 and the Super Coach world is crying out for mid-price or the mid-300 price centers or cheapies altogether. So maybe that's what's happening. But otherwise I don't really have any interest in any of them. I think Cobbo is what he is, as Jesse said. Mariner, Mariner sort of had a really good year last year. Do I think he's going to keep going? I think what he did last year, he'll probably just make it more consistent this year. So therefore, I think he's probably going to be where he's at. Staggs, I'm not interested. Staggs is one of the best centers in the competition, but in terms of what he does for Supercoach, no. I don't have an interest there with the Broncos.
Moving on, fullback, man pictured is big topic here. Bailey True, 198K, no interest there. Won't be getting much game time, if any. Hayes Perham has signed from the Bulldogs. Centre wing duel, 294K. And Reece Walsh, 738K. Questions up there about him. Should Walsh be in the fullback conversation when we're talking Supercoach and all these must-have players in this basically three positions when we include flex? I will put my hand up right now. I haven't made one team yet with him in it. The draw potentially is having people start to think a bit more. He's 9% owned, actually, which I actually feel like that's a bit higher than I thought he would have been. I'm surprised it's 9. But, again, we looked at the draw earlier where there's potential upside there for an attacking player like Reece Walsh. Can Madge help him? That's probably the next part of that question to get answered. What are we thinking here, Trav? Reece Walsh, you're up on him or you just haven't gone there?
More and more. I'm seeing more and more teams with him. 9% owned is about where I kind of thought he would be. Am I getting him? Have I had him in my team? No, I haven't. Do I think he's got some relevance? Yes. I think there's improvement this year. I think, but I'm doing a lot of that on the back of Ben Hunt arriving, on the back of Carrigan getting moved into positions, and on the back of the coach and pulling that whole team into line. There is certainly improvement in what Reece Walsh can do. And I think this year is his year to do it. There's little bits of talk around Reynolds not playing. So therefore, who's going to kick? Reece Walsh. And if Reece Walsh is kicking, obviously that adds a hell of a lot more because the Broncos still score points. So there's still 10 to 12 plus points in kicking that he can add to his score. He averaged 74 points last year. in the 14 games that he played. So that's still, really good average. There was that score against Penrith where he played 4 minutes, he got 4. 4 minutes, he got 1. There was the score against the Dolphins that he got 38. And then the rest of them are not atrocious scores. It's 110, a 74, a 51, a 93, a 113, an 82, another 113, a 57, a 78, and an 85. So, they're still pretty good scores. And we talk often about Reece Walsh and his, the differences in what he does high and what he does low, and that there's not really any between. But if you really actually delve into the scores, it's pretty good. I think this year he's going to get more consistent. I think he certainly should be in the conversation. And at 730, I think that's a really nice price. And we're all crying out for that extra 30, 20, 30K in certain spots. How many times have you been caught trying to make a team and you've missed out on someone by 10K and 1K and that sort of thing? I think there's a good opportunity here to talk about him, especially with that early draw, no buy till round 12. Does he play Origin? Well, I think actually Ponga's going to get picked for fullback this year. So no, I don't think he does. So yeah, I think he certainly should be in that conversation.
Jesse, you've been big, especially last year, on Reece Walsh when it comes to picking the run. That's what you're very big on with him. Are you coming into 2025 with the same sort of mindset? And if you are, have you picked out a run that you're looking at?
I always tend to look at Reece Walsh for the run. Yeah, I kind of pick his price and go, yep, I'm happy at this price to get him in. I'm not super worried about his low scores if there is one, because he can go boom, and you see it. Those games where he goes big, he goes nuts. To be fair, he does everything, but in those massive games, he ends on 100, where you grab anyone else and they're on 140, 50, that kind of thing. So his base is incredibly low. It's really bad, actually. I'm just going to take that one game, that 4-pointer off the Penrith game, and you look at his average, it jumps all the way up to 81.2. So he's heavily underpriced for the season based off one bad game when you take that out. So providing he gets the kicking while Reynolds is out, there's obviously upside there for him. Relatively consistent, but very heavy in attack at the same time. The ceiling's not there because his base is so low. He's really got to work hard to get that 90 point. His base last year without that 1-point game was 19.5. So there's nothing. There's no base for Reece Walsh. That's not about him. So he's all about the attack, which, when he's on, he's definitely on for it. So I like his price. 738K, he's definitely got to be in the discussion because he's cheaper than everyone else. Really below him, you got Pap and Hammer. I don't think there's too many other options, and Keeney as well. So there's a few, but, Reece Walsh sort of has a different thing about him compared to the other boys at the moment. So you get the star power with him, and 738, he was a lot dearer last year. Obviously, had a bit better a year. So I like it for, what's that, 30K more. You got Drinkwater, 50K more. You got Ponga. That's where I kind of put into the starting time. I was just ugh. I like the other guys more, and they are going to be kicking. We're speculating Walsh gets the kicking and holds onto it for some period of time, where there's guys slightly dearer that can probably, keep it going. Because a lot of these games of his score last year were with kicking points too. So take that out of it. He probably drops even further. So I will look at him at some point in the year, but it's very dependent on if I need a fullback and if he's priced well. Otherwise, I don't really look into the Walsh direction at all.
So I'll ask you both just the question on the screen. Should Walsh be in the fullback conversation? I'm going to say no. I think you've just raised a number of points there, Jesse, why I'm much rather about 4 or 5 other fullbacks. So for mine, Walsh isn't in the conversation as that top echelon fullback in Supercoach.
Trav?
I think I said when I spoke, I think he should be. Yeah, I think there's upside there. I think there's improvement there. I think obviously the list is better. I think the coach is going to make it better. I reckon, a preseason with the coach and, even some of the off-field things, I reckon the clubs turn around and probably put a bit of pressure on them. So, I'm hoping they have. So I think there's a fair few changes. I certainly see upside for Walsh and think that there's a really good case for him to be put in that conversation and even played. And I think he'd be a really good pod play to start off the year.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to put him in the discussion based off the fact that without that game against Penrith, he's already about 80K underpriced. He probably will kick. His run is great. His ownership is much lower than the other guys at the moment. You have to consider him. Like, you really do have to consider it. If you're stretched thin, if you're looking for 3 fullbacks, especially in your flex, yeah, Walsh is at a good price. Or even if you were going 2 and a gun and then you wanted to stack the halves or something, I think it really just comes down to the build out of your team. Because, the discount, the 30, 40K here and there doesn't sound like a lot when you compare him to Drinkwater and Ponga for a bit dearer. But God, it makes a massive difference if it's what the last player that you need to fill your side between getting 2 guns. So I think you consider it. I think you just approach with caution. You kind of know that things can go south a little bit for him. But yeah, looking off last year's numbers, like, if you're going to take a 50 as your worst score, there's some big boys that scored 52. So yeah,
it's just
in a
that sentence
discussion.
that
But
you said where he just needs to work so hard to get those points. And even so, like when he's worked his butt off for a game, you go, yep, sweet, I've got him. This is going to be a monster. Let me look at the app, and it's a 90. Where if it's Turbo, if it's Teddy, if it's Drinky, if it's Ponga, it's 150. And they've done it with ease. It's for mine, I just can't put Walsh in that category when he hasn't done that yet. He hasn't with ease got to a 150 like some of these other elite, in my opinion, has got to. So I just can't put him in there. It's too much hope and hoping he can do this and that, where the others have done it, and they've done it time and time again.
Yeah, I'm going for the proven guns every time.
Yeah. Alrighty, let's go the Dragons. So for the Dragons, first 5, you got the Bulldogs at home. The round 2 is South. That's come off there. I'm going to take a punt here and say that's away. Got the bye, Storm at home, and then the Eels away as well. Before we get into it, let's tackle the bye, because that's obviously been a bit of a talking point. Whether people like these players with the early bye, it scares them away. They don't care, whatever. It's one game. Obviously, it's very close to it's a big week 4 super coaches. That round 3 sort of gets, then the price gets changed. Jesse, talk to us about planning, how you would go about it. Are you steering clear, not just obviously Dragons, maybe because you don't like the way the Dragons players are Supercoach-wise, but a team that has sort of like that round 3 bye, is it, meh, no, I'll wait?
It's a bit of a deterrent, especially with that start to the season. The Dogs going to be hard. South we expect to be better. That'll be hard. And then a bye when everyone gets a price rise, that kind of sucks. Coming back to Storm, where their prices will rise or fall, most likely fall. So you have to consider the start definitely when you start building out your sides, especially with a round 3 bye, and then who they play in round 4, because that's when all the things will adjust. So yeah, it comes into consideration. I don't really like the Dragons for options anyway, so it's not too much of an issue because there's not a great deal of appeal in pretty much anyone, to be honest, at this early stage anyway. A couple that I'll be keeping an eye on, Val Holmes and the like, but yeah, there's not a lot that I'm keen to start with. I haven't actually got anyone from the Dragons in my side to begin with, and if I did, looking at that start, I probably would deter it anyway. So, kind of not really that good, is it?
The round 3 bye, does it play into your thinking and strategic thinking coming into a season?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not keen on buys on anyone in the first 3 rounds. I'm trying to avoid as many buys as I can in the first 6, especially the first 5. I want to try and get players playing price rising as early as possible, getting me cash this year that I can try and use as early and as quick as possible. And then hopefully these guys who have these buys in round 4s and 5s, I can get, and that it can be swaps and stuff like that. So this is what I'm looking for. That's how I'm playing. Not to mention that, there's 3 teams on there, or 2 teams on there that are very hard. The Bulldogs and the Storm. And then we obviously think that the South are going to have massive improvement. That actual game is actually in Wollongong. It's supposed to be a home game for them.
Home game, there you go.
So that's in Wollongong. Yeah. So then you got the bye. Then they've got the Sydney game again at home against they're at Jubilee Stadium against the Storm, and then Combank. So they don't have to travel much in the first 5 games. But yeah, that's a tough game, tough draw, and then add the bye. Yeah, I'm avoiding as much as possible.
So now we'll get into the players. So for the hooker side of things, imagine going into a season with these two as your choices at hooker. That's a great start to the year. Jacob Little, 640K, and Damien Cook, 662K. And in my opinion, both had really good Supercoach years last year. So it's very, very interesting how both of these play into this team moving forward. And purely off the fact that they're both there now, they're going to be eating into each other's minutes. Whether one of them ends up playing a bit of forwards in that as well, I'm sure that will happen some. But I think they both just ruled each other out of being in anyone's team. And 0% for Little, 2% for Cook. I'm even surprised by 2%, to be honest with you. Jesse?
Yeah, it's a damn shame, isn't it? They're both so good last year, and they're both going to cancel each other out now. Two irrelevant hookers, unfortunately. It'll just pay to see how they go, to be fair. Like, you just got to wait and see who gets the bigger minute stint, what the rotation looks like, and if either of them are going to be viable, because Little's not a 30, 40-minute hooker. He's an 80-minute hooker. So I'll be interested to see what his output is if he's sharing minutes. Same as Damien Cook. Like, these guys aren't known for being, split pairs hookers when it comes to an actual game. So, yeah, look, it's a bit of a shame. I don't think the Dragons would have organised the whole Cook thing had Little had killed it the entire year pre-season. But, here we are now. Two of the best last year are kind of, it's a bit of a shit go.
It's a bit deflating, isn't it?
It sucks. Yeah, Cook was great to have last year. Obviously, like Trav talked me into it pretty early on, and I think it was about 2/3 of the way into the season, actually, kind of when I needed Marshall King to go. And bloody hell, he got an absolute tear. I would have been very tempted, honestly, very, very tempted on him again had that continued. But I just don't see it being worth it, especially not with hookers as they are at the moment. There's a lot in the 500s, even lower 300s. We're talking about heaps of these players now, so it's a lot of money to spend up on someone who for certain is probably going to lose a good deal of cash. So
yeah,
shame.
Trav,
shame.
Anything else to add to the hooker situation at the Dragons?
No, I mean, the only thing I'm sort of watching, I'm not interested. I'm not going to pick either of them. I won't look at even picking them. I'm only going to watch them. And the only reason why I'm going to watch them is the hope that, well, not the hope, but with the notion that maybe come halfway through the year, they've both dropped 200.5K, and one of them gets injured and the other one turns into an 80-minute hooker, and then I'll go straight in. So that's really the only way that I'm thinking of playing them. And even if they do swap around in terms of other positions or move to a forward spot or whatever, I'm still not interested in either of them at those prices with that. So no, I have no interest. It is massive shame. I remember plenty of times Jesse talking about how much Jacob Little was his first picked hooker, and without the talk around the Cook and things like that. So if Cook wasn't there, so yeah, I think it's a shame. That is what it
Certainly is.
Yeah.
Front row forwards for the Dragons. I don't know if he gets too much better. Hamish Stewart, 198K. Loco Pacifici Tonga, 198K. Viliami Fafita, he's back, guys. 2RF Jewel, 232K. Come back into my world, please. Michael Molo, 291K. Harmo Selly, 352K. Blake Laurie, 369K. Francis Molo, 386K. And Jack DeBellin with a 2RF Jewel, 551K. He is mentioned on screen, DeBellin. Is he flying under the radar, boys? Trav, I'll ask you first. Is DeBellin on your radar anywhere? Is he under, over? Where is he?
I posed this question for us, and I think he is under the radar. He's 2% owned. He averaged 56. He's priced at 551. I think that was on an average of 54 minutes last year. I actually think, to be honest, I think the Dragons are going to be. I think they're going to be a bit better than they were last year. I think they've now got rid of the headache of what happened with Ben Hunt. I think Ilias and Flanagan are going to be a decent, not a good pair, probably one of the worst ones, but will be good enough to play around to be able to get the likes of DeBellin some ball. I think just the leadership of what Gutho's going to do. and how Gutho can play, and that Gutho will probably want the ball in his hands as much as possible, is only going to help de Belin even more. I think he is definitely under the radar. Have I picked him? I haven't, but I'm certainly watching him very carefully. I'm not going to have him in the first 5 rounds because of the bye, because of the draw, but I'm certainly watching with a very eager eye on what happens and what he does after that.
Jesse?
Yeah. I kind of look at Jack de Belin towards the Origin period, kind of when I sort of need someone to fill that void, and they'll obviously be fit and ready and play every game from there on. So not to start with, he's not really on my radar, to be honest with you. He averaged 54 minutes last year, which is a massive drop considering 2023 he averaged 68 minutes per game in just a bit less games. So average basically the same though, 57 and 56. Like there wasn't a great deal of change there between his output. It was just he lost 10 minutes or 14 minutes of game time on average. So I expect him to definitely increase on that 54, considering they've lost Molo now. They've brought in Emre Gula, effective immediately, and he's priced at 331. So there's a bit of, I suppose, a little bit of appeal there because it's something different. You know, and Gula's not bad as well. So
that'll fade away quickly. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, your spirits will crush pretty quick in Wollongong, unfortunately. But yeah, Molo. There's not many other options. Like de Belin's kind of it. He's the only guy, and it's good that he's a dual. It's very handy if you're going to get anyone. It's kind of got to be him. But yeah, I don't know. Just still steering clear from the Dragons in general. Yeah, there'll be a time. There'll be a time for de Belin. That's the thing. There's always a time to Jack de Belin. Yeah. So
just the score, you'll consistently get out of him, and that was the appeal to me. That does, I guess, put him up a little bit more in my sort of books, but I just, at the moment, that round 3 bye, real pain in the ass. I don't mind the fact that he has to verse decent opposition because for me, it just means he'll work a bit harder maybe, and Flanagan's forced to perhaps play him a little bit more, thinking he's one of his best forwards and he has to have him on the field a bit more. I just feel, I don't know if it's the right time to bring it up, but ever since he's come back from obviously everything that happened, he's kind of been a shadow of his former self, because I just remember him being this absolute gun almost that was on the edge of Origin and all this sort of thing. And just even like when you're watching him on the field, it just sort of just feels like he's there, but he's not. And he's just wanting more and just doesn't happen. So like just goes about it. Like Supercoach, he'll get his 56 odd average. And yeah, I don't know. I just wanted a little bit more out of him.
Yeah.
In general.
Been a couple years away. It's a pretty wild time for him, to be fair.
That's what I mean. Like, I can't
thing, so yeah.
I won't bag him for it. It just feels like it's always been a huge thing for him personally. It just feels like it's still to this day probably carrying on with him, which is unfortunate, like obviously to come back and carry that. But anyway, we're talking Supercoach. We're not going into that. So,
That's it.
2 RF forwards for the Dragons. Oh my God. Jacob Halengahu, 198K. Dylan Egan, 198K. Corey Ackers, 198K. I'm going to say him again just because I love him. Viliami Fafita, 232K. That jewel comes in handy, guys. I'll tell you what, start with him. It's a great play. Ryan Couchman, 265K. Raymond for Taylor Mariner, 416. Toby Couchman, 483. Goodness me, they've got some players. Tom Eisenhuth, 516K. Luciano Leilua, 545K. Jack de Belin, we've already spoken about. And Jaden Sewer, 656K. 67 average. 1% owned. Is he flying under the radar, Trav? I'm going to throw back to you because I know you asked this question. So is he flying under the radar at 656K at a 67 average last year?
Yes, 1% owned, 656K to average 67. I think he is certainly under the radar. I think people are not looking at him. It's hard to ignore someone who put in a team that the Dragons were last year, especially the way that they finished the year, to have a 67-point average. I think it's certainly under the radar. I do just want to take one step back, if that's okay, and just ask one question. And one of the questions that I wanted to ask was in the front row forward, we missed him. I know you mentioned him, but we missed him. Tonga, Pacifica Tonga. He's 10% owned at 198K. Unless I'm missing something, I don't know what people are seeing at 10% owned because he's not dual. Have I missed something there?
I've
There's
in whispers about him getting a bench spot, but it's very far off at the moment. So it's the same thing that happened to Fafita last year. Filiami Fafita. There's that one game that he got, or 2 games, and you thought, oh, it could be something good, and then he was just a horrible bloody headache nuff you couldn't get rid of. So I feel like it's going to be a lot of the same for those 10%, and it will probably go much lower come team lists. Yeah.
he's a big
There's a few
boy.
of them.
He's a big boy. He's got some good talent. I think it's a matter of when, not if, he'll get into that spot. I think that's just a bit of hype. He's cheap. People probably just throwing him in, wanting that 4th spot, bottom dollar in their front row forwards, potentially.
Basically,
yeah, good. I just wanted to mention it because he's got 10% owned. So there's a lot of people out there that are on him. And just wanted to have a quick question about that. Now to go back to Sewer.
Or he's very popular, and there's a lot of his mates out there that play Supercoach, and they're onto him. They're his first year in Supercoach, and they're all into him.
Yeah.
Yes. To answer your question simply, and I know Jesse will get into the stat dive for it, which is good, and which I could do too. But I think 1% owned. He's certainly under the radar. He's put himself up there as a premier 2RF. I think he's so young. I love the way he goes about things. I think he's one of those guys. He just plays. He plays, full 80 minutes. Like he averaged 77.6 last year. He just works. He goes. He doesn't care what the results are. It doesn't matter whether they're low, whether they're getting flogged or what. He just continues to keep putting himself, presenting and going. I think there's certainly improvement in him again this year. It's natural progression, I think, for him as well. Even with that team and how it's going, I don't think the Dragons are going to be as bad as what some people say. I don't think they're going to win too many games, but I don't think they're not easy beats. And I just really hope Cook and Gutho make some big changes there. They've still got Val Holmes on the side too. So it's not a bad team on paper. I think Sewer is certainly under the radar. Good value at 656 on a 67 average. I'm surprised at 1% ownership, but yeah, there are some great picks at that price and a little bit more and a little bit less. So I can see why, but I think he's someone that we need to have a good look at.
Talk to us, stat man.
I think he's definitely flying under the radar, but it's valid. He has had one solid year. That 67 was massive for him. At his price point, 656, Jermaine Hopgood's 657, Olakau'atu's 665, Barnett 661, Nakora 682. He's right up in the thick of the big guns who have done it on a consistent basis, which does make me think it's a bit, the ownership numbership's fair. Like I don't think it should be much higher than that, just based off the merit of things. He averaged 67 the year before. He averaged 56 the year before. It was 52. Bit of an increase in base, 42. 55 with power on a 2023 average of 40 and 49 in power. So it was a slight increase. He's got a lot more tries. Last year he got 9 tries. The year before it was 4 tries. So that's going to do pretty big things to his average because the minutes were pretty much the same. A couple extra tackle busts on average a game. Well. He loses Ben Hunt. So, but they gain, Cook, Holmes, depending on what side Holmes is on. Gutho as well. So they've replaced their attacking outlets because you've got to remember too, a lot of that went to Hunt and Lomax. So I'm pretty sure Sewer was a right-hand edge as well, if I can remember.
Oh yeah. Oh, maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, I shouldn't have spoken. Sorry.
So yeah, it's going to be a little bit different for him. I just kind of want to see if he can do it again, to be honest, because the appeal is there and the pod numbers are going to be screaming because I don't think his numbers will ever climb up too far. I don't think he'll ever be more than 10% owned in an entire season, unless he tanks and then starts to bounce back. But even still, I don't think it's going to creep up past that. I just don't see how much more he can do. That's the thing. I look at the numbers here, pretty solid. Like you can't really knock it for a 67. I think that's kind of hit his peak. To be fair, what more can he really do? He can't get more minutes. He can score more tries, but it might be hard. His base is already quite solid. 42 in base, 55 in base and power. That's nothing to really knock about. He's got the numbers going right. The average is really good. There's just no value. So, and the draw is pretty rough. He's got Origin too. So like there's a lot of things come into play with him, unfortunately. But yeah, he's the best they've got, definitely in the Dragons. You look at the upside of the team, I think he's definitely one of the best players they have as a team collective. But yeah, I think for Supercoach, there's a lot of other options.
Yeah, I'm probably on fair and on the. I think he's under the radar, but I also understand why he's under the radar. With those names you picked, again, I'd probably rate him last out of that group that you did name that I'd be going after. So
could be a sneaky draft play, I reckon.
Yeah,
I reckon let's do a quite.
I had him last year. I loved him.
Yeah,
loved him.
There you go. So that's what I mean. I think you could probably afford to wait a couple of rounds, and he might fall to you as well. So, yeah, I think to be honest, I think his appeal's in draft. I think he's super underrated for that. I don't think you go in too far with it. So there's not many options. That's the thing.
Do you have any more options here at 2RF? Anyone I'm missing? Because don't like the look of really anyone else here.
I like the Couchmans. Hey, I'm super keen to see what happens with them because
I love them as players. Yeah,
they're great players, and I want to see them get a run. And you just either one too. I suppose they've got Toby, who's a bit dearer. But either way, like they're both solid. Ryan is just as good. I think he just doesn't have the same amount of game time as each other. So I'm keen to see what happens there. But there's freaking so many players they've got to choose from.
Yeah.
It's just it's going to be a weird little rotation there. I think it ends up being Sewer and Leilua probably shares minutes with someone. Sewer gets majority of the game. But then you got Fatala Mariner, probably snag a few starts here and there as well. Same as Eisenhuth. I think Eisenhuth just got added to the game. He's lost his dual center that he had last year. So 516, a bit much, but he was super, super under the radar last year. I think very few people started with him and he just went on a tear. So if you had him when he was cheap, you rode that out for a long time. There's a lot of players and very few options for me.
Any other things to add to that, Trav?
No, all good.
Halfback for the Dragons. There is only one option. It is Lockie Ilias, the prize signing from the South Sydney Rabbitohs. 348K, a 30 average last year in only 2 matches. Currently 3% owned. The question is simply, is Ilias a play? Jesse, I'll throw to you first for this one. Do you think Lockie Ilias is a play for this year?
Yeah, I do. I think 3% owned is criminal. I thought it was going to be way more than that, to be fair. 3%, like that's next to nothing. You know what I mean? Like you got that front rower who's not going to get a game this year, got 10%. For a cheap halfback, especially with the way that we're building sides out, there's a lot of 3 fullback teams in there that want to run Cleary. Like you need a cheap halfback to afford a good team. 348, like you could do worse for sure. I don't know how good he'll be, to be fair, but I think he's definitely a play. They don't really have any other options. He's going to put it out there. He's got a lot to prove as well, obviously, coming off how his stint went at the Rabbitohs. I think he can definitely get better than a 30 average. Like, it's not going to be hard for him to do, considering how much the Dragons rely on a halfback. If he's going to fill the void of Hunt, it might be a bit difficult. But, yeah, it's got to increase. It's got to be more there. The ball never went to him. The Rabbits didn't trust him. So I think it's going to change him a lot. We do see him increase. He probably has about maybe 10 points of value in him, give or take. Won't be a world beater halfback by any means, but you're buying him for 350. Like he's just going to get your side structured enough that you can field someone if you really needed to. So I think he's definitely a play. It's just 3%, freaking crazy, so low.
Trav?
I think he is definitely a play, and I'll second the same thing as what Jesse says. The only thing I'll add is that I think 3% is very low, but there's a few options there, and because there's only one halfback spot, it's difficult you can't fit them all in, and most of them are duals, right? So you got Sandon Smith, but I think Sandon Smith should be in the hooker role, in the hooker spot for me. You got Tanner Boyd sitting there at 329. You've got Dodd at 336. That's 14% owned. There's talk around Ethan Sanders and how that's looking at the Raiders and becoming a decent option. And then even further down, like Duffy for the Cowboys is still riding on the hype of the picture that was posted with him with the 7 jersey on. So, but he's at 8% owned. I think it's just because you can only fit one of them. Most of them are all halfback only. which is why it's 3%. But to be honest, if I was to rate every one of them, I would actually go Sandon Smith first, Ilias second. So I think Ilias should be the next percentage highest owned over the rest of them. So I think he's definitely a play. He's definitely someone that I'm going to look at. I haven't got him in my team right now. I have had him. I haven't got him in my team right now, but that's just more so because I was playing around and trying to find some money elsewhere. And so I dropped him down to Ethan Sanders just to see where that was, because I wanted that extra little bit of cash to see what I could do. I have a feeling I'm going to end up with Ilias to start with my year.
Yeah, see, I'm sitting with the halfback combination of Cleary and Hines, like I expected to have, and I think I will just do it again because freaking Cleary and Hines, like, why not? So I'm not looking at him personally. I have built teams around, having a cheap one in there, but the options that you gave, Lewis Dodd, he's got woeful numbers in the Super League. I don't expect much from him, to be honest with you. I know there's a lot of talk around it. The same thing, Ilias, he came through expecting to get a lot out of him. That just didn't seem like it was going to happen. And I don't know if it happens for Dodd either. I think that could be a lot of the same. Dean Hawkins, you don't know what's going to happen. Tanner Boyd, you don't even know if he's going to get the start. Obviously, Sandon Smith is massive appeal and his ownership's through the roof. But again, he's got the hooker, so it's between both. Outside of that, Duffy's job security is quite low. The thing with Ilias is there's no other halfback. Like, he's going to be the guy. He's going to be there every week. He's going to be playing 80. If you need that cheap halfback, that's going to do it. Like, he's the most nailed. So it's like even less of a headache than having a dead halfback spot in one of the most important positions in your side, playing with a plotter who's really not going to do a thing. There's a chance Ilias actually does go up in value. I don't think these other guys are going to have too many opportunities for it. If you're going to go up a bit more, 40K, you can get into Isaiah Katoa, and I really like that. And it would be either Ilias or Katoa if I was going to go cheap at halfback in general. I don't really think it's the position to go cheap overall, but again, the flex kind of opens the doors to splitting the two good halves and the two gun fullbacks to three fullbacks and a half potentially, or vice versa. But it's a really high upsides position, and it's risky going that cheap in general. But I still think there's merit to it if you've got three good fullbacks.
He is back into training that now, but he is coming off a pretty horrific leg injury as well. So just keep that in mind as well with Ilias. I feel like I've said it a lot tonight, but again, a player I just want to watch at the start. I just want to see how he comes out. He has some very tough opposition. We've said that a number of times already. So I don't know if they'll score too many points early. It might be a thing where you wait for a better run to come along, and then you get onto Ilias, who should be around that same sort of price by then, I'd say. And then just go from there. But again, the teams and how you're making them and how you're setting them, it could be the only play that you have money-wise, and then it would make sense, as you've both rightly said. 5'8", there is only one option, the Kyle Flanagan, 403K. I don't know if we'll spend as long as we did on Ilias on Flanagan. For me, I can't go there. 403K. Just not entertaining. I think 40K more, you're at Metcalf, and I know exactly who I'm going for. Jesse?
Adam Dewey. I'm going for Adam Dewey instead. That's my boy, 440. Look, Kyle Flanagan, 91 games he's played in halves. He has average 43. He's pretty much that 40 guy. I don't think there's much more going to happen. Potentially even less. Who knows? But it's not for me at all, to be honest. So there's a world for someone.
Trav, are you in the Flanagan camp?
Nope. Do I think he's all right? I do, but no.
NRL-wise, I think he'll do a handy job. I think he actually improved a lot last year and didn't get the credit he deserved. So,
correct.
But super coach-wise, no, thank you. Centre wings, and goodness me, it makes me happy seeing this guy and seeing him on the training field. I know he won't be an option at the moment, but it's just good to see him back. Cody Ramsey, 214K, back on the training paddock, looking, getting fit. Obviously, he has a bit of size not to put back on naturally from what he's gone through, but it just looks good just to see him back in amongst the boys with the kid on and things like that. Really good. I really hope he can come back at some point, because he had such a promising career ahead of him. It was very sad if we don't get to see any of that. Corey Allen, the forgotten man last year with that early injury. They stuck with him, and in a way has been forgotten about as well this year at 232K. there is early talk that he will be almost picked in that back line to start round one. So if that is the case at 232K, I think the current ownership of 2% will skyrocket to a 40% or something. That'd be crazy. Sione Finau, 279K. Matt Feagai, 414K. Michele Ravalawa, 4th. I thought he left mid-year. 433. Moses Sully, 470. Tyrrell Sloan with the fullback centering duel. Now he is pretty much a certainty to be picked on the wing. So 542. Christian Tuipulotu, 552K. And Valentine Holmes, the man pictured, 784. Smile on his dial. Trav, I'll ask you, is Val Holmes even in the conversation anymore? And why has no one been talking about him?
Because he's playing for the Dragons. That's why.
And he's nearing 800K.
So you've got, so not only have you got who he's playing for, the fact is that he's near 800K. You just can't go there. Like, I really just don't think you can go there. Is Val Holmes going to do what he did at the Cowboys? No, I really don't think he's going to. I think, unfortunately, Val Holmes is going to have a year this year where he sits there and thinks, "Oh, did I make the right choice by going to the Dragons?" But I think there was obviously a lot to play out there, and the Cowboys said you can go, but and the Dragons can pay him and wanted to pay him, so he went there. But unfortunately, I'm not looking at picking him. I can't afford him. Like, I can go and get Garrick at 680. I can get Carraz at 702. I can get Toto at 680. My gosh, I'll take all of them every day of the week. Now, if Val Holmes was still at the Cowboys, would I be looking at him? I certainly would. At 800K still then, I certainly would be. Yep. But no, he's not. He's playing for a different team at 800K. It's he's not in my conversation at all.
Jesse, I'm shocked he's actually at 4%.
Oh,
I mean, really honest.
Yeah, it's mental. Who can afford him at that price? 4%
Especially
ownership.
after what Trav just named, like, those players are easily getting chosen above Valentine Holmes every day of the week at the moment.
Yeah, I think the whole thing about Holmes' ownership, obviously, it's Valentine Holmes. He's traditionally the number one centre wing. You know what I mean? He's right up in the mix. If he's not number one, he's in the top three, and he's done that consistently too. So it's a big move to the Dragons compared to the Cowboys. You know, and the attacking sort of upside and the flair that the Cowboys can put on that the Dragons lack if your name's not Lomax or Hunt. So yeah, he started off with a bang last year: 108, 54, 144, 59, 93. And then it just keeps doing a lot of the same. There's a lot of 50s around there, and then that was in a much better side comparatively. But he's got the ceiling for it. It's just, how many times do the Dragons have that kind of opportunity? There's very few. Like, you look at the average for the entire side, it's quite low. You know what I mean? There's a lot of 40s and 30s and a couple of 50s here and there, and that's as good as it gets for them. So you got to think, like, how much of a difference is it really going to make? And they've got the bye. The draw's pretty rough. Man, I can see him losing potentially 150K by round 6 or 7. Might be a handy pickup for 600K, to be honest with you. I definitely look at that and go, shit, it's Valentine Holmes for this price. Like, you can't ignore it. So I think there will be a time where we look at Valentine Holmes and think that it's very good. I think it's going to be a very hard price to maintain, though, starting off with the Dragons. So, yeah, I'm not going to rule out owning him at some point this year, because I'm pretty sure I might. But yeah, to start with, good God, 784K with the teams we're trying to put together, you can make that money spread, 1,000 miles before you go him.
Yeah, no, thank you. Any other CTWs here that are appealing to you both? I'm just, once again, like, it's not great, but I just can't see anyone then make a valid case for him.
Not really. Tuipulotu has a lot of upside, but his price is pretty much it. 552, like, it's just too dear. You look at, like, you got Marzu and Skelton and Isaac Tunga and all these guys at Campbell Graham, they're all 500. He's 50K dearer than them, so it puts him out of contention for a role as well. And that's the same with the rest of the side. Tyrrell Sloan, Sully. I think Sully's going to have a much better year too. I've got, half decent raps around him. He probably does it, but again, a lot of errors, suspensions, that kind of stuff. So no appeal to be fair. No appeal out of anyone. And right now, Valentine Holmes is not a look either.
Yeah.
Shame.
Are you no dealing, Trav?
Yeah, no interest for me from anyone else, man.
No deal. Fullback, and we've already spoken about the first two. That's Cody Ramsey and Terra May, who both have that CTW dual. And Clint Gutherson, the big signing from the Eels, 675K, 2% ownership currently. Trav, any interest here with Clint Gutherson, or can you make any arguments for Clint Gutherson?
The only interest I've got with Clint Gutherson is that I really want him to succeed. I really want him to play well, but I do not have any interest in him as a super coach player for my team at all. I have not looked at him. I haven't, every time I've gone through, as I'm scrolling through, even now, just having a look around, I just literally scroll straight past him. So yeah, zero interest in the fullback positions, in the fullback position from the Dragons, other than I just want to watch and I hope that he plays well.
Jesse?
Yeah, basically exactly that. I think Gutherson must have 2% of the family on Supercoach to have him in the side that much. So yeah, I hope he does well. I really hope he does well. He's got massive games in him. He's got huge games in him when he gets going. So get the Gutherina out. It might be all right. But yeah, not for your fullback. I think even the flex, there's too many other options. So yeah, it'll be a watch and hope he gets back to his best. But for Supercoach, I think it's done.
I agree. I think it's fair to say, to sum up the Dragons, it's going to be a lot of waiting and seeing. That round 3 bye is a huge pain in the ass, and it's not a great start to the year. So let's just wait. Let's see how it unfolds, see how some of these signings influence this team, and we might be trying to jump on around that 7, round 8 sort of mark and go on from there. Last one for the night is the Gold Coast Titans. So their first 5 rounds, round 1, the bye, round 2, the Bulldogs away, round 3, the Knights at home, round 4, the Roosters away, and round 5, the Dolphins at home. You go onto the app and you look at all these blue dots everywhere, and it doesn't make for pretty looking. It's very in your face, actually. So obviously it represents the Titans having the bye. Jesse, I'll ask you first because we speak about this with the Dragons. Having that round 1 bye, does that change anything for you? Is it a no-go zone? Talk to us.
Not really. It depends on obviously how many guys you want to load up. Basically, Tino, he's kind of the guy that everyone's got their eyes on. So, you got to consider it, but I think it's pretty convenient in round 1. Like you get the round 1 bye out the way, it's done. Scores are usually pretty rubbish anyway, so you don't have to worry too much about it. And it's your round 1 team. Like you should be able to cover them. Because if your plan is to buy these guys in that have a round 1 bye, then you just know that you have to fill in the gap for the week. And it's 1 week. So it doesn't need to be a gun to cover your gun that you're bringing in from the Titans. You just have to get a guy that'll do a job, and it's round 1. Like what's going to happen? If you got your eyes on a Tino who's gonna, hope averages 70 kind of thing, and it's just 1 week. Maybe he gets 50 points that week, and then you have to play a guy who scores 40. It's like it's not the end of the world. It kind of hurts with the fullback side of things, I think, because I'm really keen on Keeney, and I don't know if I'd want to run like a round 1 bye in that kind of upside position. I think I might look towards him down the line for it. But and then your Dave Fafita's, and you got some like Beau Fermor as well. They're pretty good. So yeah, you got to just make sure you can cover them, but it's 1 week and it's the first week. So you just get it done. And then their price rise is delayed a week, which is a bit inconvenient. But again, it's not the end of the world. I think you can definitely get past it. Because their draw, they got the Dogs in round 2, the Knights, the Roosters, and the Dolphins. I'm not sure what 6 entails for them, but it's a bit mixed. I'd say there's definitely winnable games in there. If you're looking at him, yeah, exactly. There's definitely worse draws to start with. So, it's not a deterrent as much as the Dragons one potentially would be, because their run's actually quite difficult, and then their bye's in an awkward position. So, yeah, I think you just kind of pick 1 or 2 that you really, really want to have, and then you just, stick with it for a week, and you just get over it, and you just make do.
100%. Let's get into the players. So Hooker got Sammy Verrills, 416K, and Chris Randall with a 2RF dual, 510K. both currently sitting at 0% ownership, which shows us there is not much interest in either of these. Should those numbers be changing, Trav?
No.
Jesse?
Not really. No, it's more about a minutes thing. If Verrills can get 80 minutes, which probably won't happen, I don't mind it. Randall will probably dip into that too. I don't think it's the same as the Dragons boys, except there's a lot less appeal out of these ones. There's no upside really with the two of them doing what they're doing.
I've seen a few pieces around Verrills and what he can do and how he finished his career or his time at the previous club as he moved into here and minutes and things like that. But it still just screams to me like, no, I think I really think that the Titans hookers just literally play the ball, make that pass, and then that's about all they do. So, and they play that role, and that's it. So it then gets into your Tinos, your Fafita's hands. It gets into Jaden Campbell, brims them in the time. This year it'll be get the ball as much as they can to Keeney and go from there. So, and Foran just plays and lays it up and sets them all up and straightens the lines where he needs to. So, yeah, I just, whilst I wasn't being rude, and I'm not trying, and I'm sorry if it wrecks the podcasting sort of vibe, but when you ask the question, am I interested in the hookers? No, I am not.
Yeah,
on Verrills, it's a fair point.
He played 15 games last year, average minutes 74. So I'm just looking at decent minute games and like very little split there. He averaged 51, so there's not a lot of upside even with a near 80-minute game. He might have 80-ish K value in him. I don't see his game changing. It's never really been more than that, 48s and 45s and that kind of thing. So we know what we're going to get out of Verrills. Same thing as Randall. I think the better thing with Randall is he rotates through the middle, so there's a bit more base. But either way, it's not appealing. I've already spoken too much on him.
Yeah, give me Randall in draft. Just get me through me 50 points every week, Randall. Yeah. Thank you. Basically. Give me about a 12th pick. Thank you. Front row forwards. Now they've got a lot of options here, and it's going to be an interesting chat because of this reason. So I'm not even going to say Mr. Simpkins, 2RF dual, 198K. Ben Liu, 198K. Arama Howell, 232K. Isaac Suamala-Aui, 232K. Josiah Pahulu, yes, he's still there at the club, 254K. Then there's a jump up to Mr. Mo Fodawaker, 464K. Jermaine Jolliffe, 482K. Prize signing from the Eels, Regan Campbell Gillard, 495K. And Big Tino Fa'asuamala-Aui, the captain, is back, 531K. You are hearing that right, guys. Tino Fa'asuamala-Aui is 531K. Jesse.
Lock him in.
Thank you. Trav.
No, I don't think he's a must-have.
Oh.
No, that's fair.
Go on.
So, he's wonderfully priced for what we know of Tino. Tino is an absolute monster. I get it. I do. I 100% get it. But he just missed 12 months. He got injured in the second round. The injury that he had is not an easy one to come back for, particularly the way he plays. The Titans have a huge rotation through their pack. I don't think Tino is a lock to get those big minutes to start off with. I actually think they'll be smart with the RCG signing, and then the hope that Fafita and the like, and Mofo and these guys can carry some load to limit Tino and just ease him in. I think the first round bye is also a factor as well. I don't think Tino is a must-have for those reasons.
I'm kind of with you here, Trav, because I originally, the first team I made, I seen Tino at that price. I said, mate, in my team, thank you very much. The more and more I think about it, the more and more I've gone a bit off him, and just mainly, again, to start the year. I just want to watch Chris Randall, and Jesse said it earlier, spent a lot of time in the middle last year, and I actually thought whenever he got to play lock, he killed it. He was really, really good for the Titans and helped make them a much better side whenever he was there. Tino, Reg, Jolliffe, Fodawaker, Pahulu, that's 5 alone that need to have minutes in the middle, in my opinion, and it's got to be shared. There's 6 once you include Randall as well in that middle rotation. That 6 doesn't go into 3, and it very rarely I don't know. I know Tino's an absolute gun. I know what he can do, and I think having that quality, you just have him play. But at the same time, I think early he might not get those big minutes. I think after 5-6 rounds, he might start getting those minutes back. But Jesse, you're massive on him.
Oh, 100%. I'm not going to waste a trade. I'm just going to get him to round 1. There's enough guys to cover him. You got Horsburgh, White, Hess, freaking hell. Who else? There's a few jewels in the first place anyway, and there's enough to do. So it's not the worst in the world. Look, even still, he's priced off a 50, 51. Yeah. He's going to do that. He's going to do that in 40 minutes. So I'm not too worried about the minute split. He's a jewel. Okay, he's got a round 1 bye.
So nice.
Is what it is. Yeah, the jewel's amazing. He averaged 77.5 in 2023. Averaged 67 in 2022. Both of those years, he's 60 minutes. I don't see that dropping too far. Okay, he might drop down to 50, 55, but either way, I don't think he's going to lose any value at 530k. I think the price is fantastic for him. Honestly, I'm not worried at all. I'm really not worried about it. His movement from an ACL, I don't think really affects him too much. It's a lot of, heavy load kind of in the line sprint. It's not a lot of lateral movement. There's no pace that he's going to lose because there's not a lot of pace that he doesn't wind up for. I don't think that kind of injury is going to hinder him as like it would a winger or a fullback or something. So either way, it's still an ACL. It's still a big one to come back from with that amount of time he's missed. And I think Campbell Gillard's injured to start the season. So there's not much to worry about there on the minute side of things. I think there's, you kind of know what you're going to get. I don't know how much RCG and these guys dip into him. I think if anything, it's Randall who probably takes minutes away from Tino more than the other boys. I'm just really not worried about it. I think 37% ownership's dropping rapidly from the initial 70-odd% in the team picker. And I think a lot of people are scaring each other off, the idea of going Tino. I'm not scared about it at all. He's going to be in my side round 1, and he'll probably be in my side round 27 if he doesn't get injured. So that's
quick prediction. What do we reckon he ends the year average wise?
72.
I was thinking 69. Trav?
See, my prediction is that he doesn't start the year as high, so I'm going to go about 68. 67, 68.
It's still a lot, though. We're still looking at his price at a 50.
Yep. Yeah,
I don't
100%.
think we're all talking about him putting potentially 200k's worth of value on, and a wait and see kind of move. I just think it's inevitable that you get him in. What's the risk?
I'll have him in my team at some point. There's no doubt about it, and it's just I don't know why. At the moment, I just want to watch and make sure, because then the next question is there anyone else in this FRF appeal to us? And the answer is no, simply because I just think they're all going to eat into each other's minutes. So I just feel like, in a way, that's maybe the argument for Tino, but we all know Tino's an absolute gun, so you can't really eat into his minutes. If he wants to play long minutes, he'll get that because of the quality that he is. But the rest of them, I can't look at, because they're just, unless there's 2 or 3 injuries and then they start to be getting better minutes, I can't look at them.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, there's too many mouths to feed. I think Tino's the only exception. So, no, thank you.
Agreed.
2RF. So you got Ryan Foran, 198k. Jacob Alec Weinke, 295k. Cleese Haas, 404k. Chris, I've already mentioned Randall. I've already mentioned Tino. Bo Fermor, 593k. And Mr. David Fafita himself, 749k. Average last year, 76.5. Can we trust David Fifita again, Trav?
Oh, it's such a big question. Because he's just such a scary man, isn't he? Like he's just. I've said it so many times that he's that one guy that you pick or that you don't have in your team, and often you don't, and you hide behind the couch whenever you see the Gold Coast Titans because you just wish you had him, but you don't. He's 1% owned.
Like that's ridiculous.
There's lots of people who don't trust him. And as we talked about what he did last year, he still put up 20 matches at 76.5. So yeah, it's incredible, eh? Can we trust David Fifita? Well, the numbers are telling us that we should, but the ownership's telling us that we don't. So yeah. It's such a hard one. Hey, I talked about so much about how much I wish I just had Isaiah Yeo, right? Like, because every week I'm going to get 75 out of him every single week. And then last year he showed that he has those big scores. David Fifita is still going to get those decent scores, but then we'll push out, 150s way more often than Isaiah Yeo does. So why am I not talking about David Fifita? So I put this question down as, can we trust David Fifita? And clearly we don't. But I think we need to start thinking about the fact that we should.
Jesse,
I think it's more. I love him. He's so scary not to have. I tend to try and get him as early as possible every year just because of, how insane he is. He's a lot. He's 750. We've got a lot of options at 2RF in that bracket. Angus Crichton is pretty fresh in everyone's mind about how insane he was, and I think he's more. If it's a trust thing that we're talking about, I think Crichton's more trustworthy than Fifita is, and I'd like to have him in my side more so just because of how insane Crichton is. But it's no knock on Fifita. He's just as good, if not better, more consistently over the last few years. Obviously, with the Crichton side of things, so he's a bit of an injury cloud.
To put it out there. They played the same amount of matches, Crichton and Fifita. Obviously, we know what Crichton did and how he started. Crichton scored 19 more points than he did across the year. 1 point different.
Honestly, and we're talking about Fifita being on a bad year. How disappointing was he? What a lull.
Now we don't trust him.
Yeah, I know. And he's 1% owned. He's freaking wildly insane. Like, look at his average. I've just lost last year's, so it's like a poor year compared to what he's done. He scored 70 plus 68% of the time. On a bad year, he scored 80 plus 52% of the time. He scored 90 plus into the tons 10% of last season. It's like he's freak. He racks up unicorn points like nothing else too. And I don't know how he does it. 744, good value. Super low ownership. Round one buy is kind of rubbish to spend 750k, understandably. And he's under a bit of an injury cloud as well. I don't think there's any doubts for him to start round one, but I think people are expecting him to come into it a little slower. But either way, man, it's Fifita. Like, you know exactly what he's going to do. And I think it just gets better off a bad year. I think he's probably going to want his origin spot back. There's something to fight for. He's got every opportunity for it. Why not? It's 1%. 1% ownership.
Thinking out loud, am I buying into something here a bit too much? The fact that they've got round one buy, and like Jesse there's probably a lot out there who are just going to pick Tino and just go, yep, whatever. But they won't go too many more Titans because they don't want to have like 3 or 4, let's say, having a buy round one. Could we see some of these numbers quickly skyrocket by round 2? And just this round one buy is keeping a lot of people going, you know what? One Titan is enough for me to start the year.
Yeah, well, he's 250k dearer than Tino. So that's a lot of coin if you're going to get both. Like, how are you going to ration out 1.3 mil that aren't playing in round one? It's too much. So if you're going to do it, you kind of just have to lock in one. I don't think round 2 you're going to see his numbers skyrocket. I think it's tricky with him because if you don't start with him, you tend not to get him until after Origin. And that's
I'm just meaning Titans in general, like Titans.
Just the Titans as a whole.
Just Titans players, yeah.
Well, how many do you want? Who's a valid option to begin with?
I think you'll see. You'll see the numbers lift at round 3. Round 4 after they played their round 2, round 3 against the Dogs and the Knights. That Knights game's quite juicy. So I think what might happen is you'll get some decent results there. If anything, the Titans' early buy is actually good for everybody because you get a gist of who you've picked. You get to see what they've done, and if they haven't done any good, you can drop down to the Titans boys. So I think that it works out nicely. So at this point in time, they're not very well owned, but I think it will happen by round 4.
Yeah.
Don't forget about what happened with the Roosters as well for David Fifita. So that little round 3, round 4, round 5 run for Fifita all of a sudden becomes a little bit mouth-watering in a way. I reckon he'll come out being his bonnet against the Chookies and want to prove a point that they've missed an absolute gun. So, yeah, I don't mind that little run. And who knows, at 1% ownership of a huge early pod. Imagine saying you got David Fifita as a pod to come into the year. Fantastic stuff.
You do get him in round 2 or 3. It'll be before everyone flocks to him. I guarantee it. The ownership probably won't change from 1 to 2, maybe 2% by that sort of round. And you get to see the ideas on the break evens for the Titans as well. So you can kind of do what Trav said. If you're going to lose a whole bunch, just jump onto someone who's going to make some. You still get an extra week to do it. He could be that guy, man. He could really be the guy if you've got a big, expensive second rower who's just gone, nothing, and you're like, oh crap, I'm about to lose all this money. Just make it happen, because I think even on a bad game, you're going to get a 60 out of him. Really, it's pretty good.
The only other player I want to see at this TRF and have a quick discussion about is Beau Fermor. I think he had a really good underrated year last year in terms of both NRL and Super. He averaged 60.6 at Supercoach last year, and I think majority who had him in their centre wings and just had a guy that just plowed away and got that 60-odd points almost on a weekly sort of basis. What's your thinking around this one here, boys? And has he been on your radar at all?
A little bit. Yeah, I think as for the dual position now is good. He didn't start with it last year, and he was my favourite mid-price second rower. I was super vocal about how high on Beau Fermor I was, and he came back from an ACL too. So they can definitely do it. There's definitely players that come back a bit better than others. But 593, 6 games last year in the centres, he averaged 56. 14 games on the edge, he averaged 60.5. So it's pretty good. The stats are there. Good solid base, 40 and 50 between those two positions without any extra power points. And obviously his minutes are locked in at 80. So I like it. I like the base, especially with the dual center wing. It's 590. You can do a lot more with it, especially upside wise. But if you're going for that position to start the year, round 1 buy is nowhere where you want to spend that kind of money. But the numbers are usually a bit lower to start off, and the base is really nice. So you got him, guys like him and Dylan Lucas, those edge guys that have the dual center, pretty appealing, just for a high base. But the ceiling's not very good. But yeah, I don't mind it. I think it's a nice flexible one. It's just a little bit pricier than it would have been nice to start with him. Like he was last year. Obviously, his price was about 100 and something K less. So yeah, I like him. I think he's always a good option. But yeah, the round 1 buy definitely hurts that position.
Trav, anything to add for Beau Fermor?
I also like Beau Fermor with all the things that you've said. He's currently owned at 2%, though. I think people are realizing that. Most people are sitting there going, I can't have too many Titans, as you said, Joel. So I think Fermor is dropped away because of that 590 price with the buy, and you don't want to have that. I'm certainly going to watch and see. He finished last year, other than the last 2 rounds where he got 53 and 51. He got 51 against Penrith. He actually finished the year really, really well. Like 88, a 92, a 62, a 78, a 60, a 43, and a 65. That's right back down to round 16. They're good numbers. Right? You're not scoffing at that. But I'm not paying $590 for a dude who's about to have a bye in week 1, then goes to play the Dogs away. I'm just going to wait and see. And if he's certainly on my target for anyone who I've picked around those prices that I don't like, that he's had a couple of good games. So I'll be watching to see. I don't think he has too much more improvement on his 60-point average, though.
Yeah, that's fair.
Halfback for the Titans. I felt this would be very, very quick. Zane Harrison, 198K. Kieran Foran, 5'8" dual, 461K. I'm just going to say no deal, boys.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Easy as that.
No, nothing at all. Sorry. Doesn't make for a
Kieran,
good pod. That's
not really.
Well, 5'8", it picks up a little bit because once again, Kieran Foran with that dual. But Jaden Campbell, 700K, fullback dual, 71.5 average, 1% ownership currently. There was a time last year where he was the best 5'8" in the game, in the Supercoach game. So had a couple of just ridiculous scores in a row, and I think I jinxed him because I got on I enjoyed 1 week of it, and then it just went downhill from there. So
it was all your fault.
Yeah, blame me. The Jaden Campbell chat, let's have it. Open it up.
You're right. He was. I did the same thing. I got onto him too. I got onto him just after he did that huge big score. Where was it? I'm just going to go through here. So I missed the 170 that he did in round 16 that he got against New Zealand. He had the bye after that. So I watched, and I remember sitting on the pod with Jesse last year, and he got a 75 and a 77, and Jesse asked me about it. And I went, no, because he's got the bye. I'm just not sold on him just yet. And then he goes and puts 170 against New Zealand. And I went, shit.
I was so keen on him too. He was 340K. I remember it, and it freaking haunts me because I was like, I'm so ready to do this. I'm ready to do it. And I think I ended up going for bloody Dallin at the same time. Shit me.
Well,
and I was just like, yeah.
At that point, he did that 75. He was 458. Got the 75. He jumped up to 486 and after a 77. He got the 170, went up to 622. Then he didn't play with the bye. Then he didn't play against the Sharks because of that injury that everyone was talking about. And then he comes back, and then that's when I got him, and he got 111. Then he went a 42 in round 20 against Manly. Then he went 100 against the Dolphins. Then he just died 38, 56, 59, and then did all right with an 86 and 82 at the end. So, he's priced at 700K, and I've just got so many things are going through my head around that I'm worried about what happens at the Titans this year. I just sitting there in the back of my head going, there's still this dude named AJ Brimson that we still have question marks around. What the hell Desi Hasler wants to do? Surely there's a smart man in him that says it's Jaden Campbell's spot, but I'm not 100% sold on that yet. I need Desi to come out and say it is. And even if he is at 700K at 5'8", I'm not going to get him just yet. But God, that hurts to say because I just think there's so much upside and so much I'm keen on him. But I'm not paying that for also because he's got that first round bye.
Don't ask too much of Des. He will not say much to the general public or super coaches. I don't think he's very fond of this great game of ours. Jesse?
Yeah, I think the mind games will keep going, Desi. 700K. He's a boom or bust guy big time. Hey, when he goes big, I don't think there's a 5'8" that can really outscore him. But again, if he doesn't have all of those attacking stats, which he's kind of just seems to be a magnet for, it can be pretty low. I don't like it. It definitely affects David Fifita's game, and that was pretty noticeable. So, they kind of cancel each other in a way. Campbell will do everything. He will just do everything. I think it's his spot. The Titans kind of need that. There's not much point pursuing this, consistent Brimson debate because where's Brimson? Where's Brimson been for the last couple of years? He's in and out. He pops up, he goes out, he gets injured, he comes back for 2 games, and he's out again. I think it's just more of a headache than it's worth. And I think you've just got a gun in Campbell, and he locks the spot down, and it's his. It's a lot of money. But again, there's a few tons in that very small period of games that Trav just went over. So I'd be real keen on him at some point again, but Super damaging. I just don't know how I can afford to put 700k in the 5'8". Like it's already so hard to do. I think you really need to wait for his price to come down, but it could
Yeah,
very well happen.
absolutely not put him at fullback.
Nah, I wouldn't think so. I'd rather run, if you're going to go anyone Titans fullback, you're going Keeney or any of the other options at fullback in general that don't have a round one bye. But yeah, I think there's probably a good possibility his price comes down. But again, it's not hard for him to hold that up because all he has to do is score a ton, and then it's going to make his break even pretty steady back again. So he could be that 600-700k for a good amount of time. I don't know, man. It's a hard debate, really, isn't it? Because I feel like he's definitely got one of the highest ceilings of the entire 5'8" bracket. But again, he's the dearest one. He's priced right at the top, so you can't see the value in him at the moment. It'll just be a really close wait and see and capitalize on a run kind of thing. Like we've said, and I hate being on the fence about it because he's definitely a freak. I had him obviously for that period last year, and God, really good, but yeah, unrealistic to start.
Yeah, look, I'm not hard. I just can't at the moment. I just can't, because I think it's the buy. The buy just has me off a lot of these Titans players because, and that Dogs game, because I have flashbacks to last year, that early game against the Dogs where they got absolutely hammered. So until they can prove to me, the Titans, that they've turned the corner and they're an actual football club again, I don't know. I can't do it. I can't spend on that much on Jaden Campbell to start the year. I can't do it. Center wings.
I was going to say, how much did he peak at last year? Because I thought it was almost like 900k at some point.
812.
812.
So yeah, he got to 622 after that 170. The 111 pushed him up to 743. Got a 42, went up to 812, and then got 100 and dropped down to 800, and then just went down from there. 800 finished at 628.
Yeah, it's a massive fluctuation. Hey, it's huge. Yeah, it could definitely happen. I'd be keen on him in the 500 to 600 bracket. I think it's pretty fair.
Oh, that's a completely different conversation. That is
if he was hovering around that 500, mid 500s, I'd definitely try and find a way. I think the upside's too high to ignore on that end, but yeah, it's too much at 700.
I agree. Center wings for the Titans: Sam Stephenson, 198k. Kenny Mamala, he's still around, guys, 214k. Tony Francis, 232k. Jalen DeGroot, 232k. Harley Smith Shields, 250. Carter Gordon, the rugby convert, 336. There is plenty of talk around him at the moment. I'm sure we'll get into that one. Jojo Fafita, 487. Mr. Khan Piera, 508. Alex AJ Brimson, 539k. Philip Sami, 585k. Brian Kelly, 587k. And then we've already spoken about Bo Firma as well. Why don't we start here with the Carter Gordon talk, boys? There's a lot of people out there talking about him. He's currently 5% owned. I think he was owned a bit higher than that. I think that's come down as we've gone closer to the preseason. I know there's people out there picking him in their predicted lineups and things like that. I can't see a full strength side where he's in the side. I think he's next in line, but might be completely wrong. I feel like Foran and Campbell will start the year in the halves. I think Keeney will be a fullback. Then you've got a mixture here. You've got like Kelly's always done a job for him at centre. Brimson for mine will probably be the other centre. And then you've got Fafita and Khan Piera on the wings. So me personally, I can't see Carter Gordon making it a spot. What are you guys thinking, Trav?
I'm thinking the same thing, but that's a really harsh call on him because there's so much talk on it about him, how good he is. I've watched a couple of videos in training. I've seen a couple of interviews about him. There's lots of talk. I actually think he'll probably get. I reckon he might even look at the sort of 14 spot. I reckon maybe he's going to sit around there on the bench, which is not ideal. I don't like on that Titans team. And at 336, that's just a lot of money to have sitting in your team at that. Yeah, I think it's a shame, but we'll see. He might be a really good target for later on. He might just be, like, depending on some injuries, depending on what happens. But apparently there's lots of talk around his talent. It's just a matter of when it gets unleashed and when they can play. And I just don't think it's going to happen early. So I'm avoiding with a very hard avoid. Mr. Ever Consistent Brian Kelly is a wonderful draft target. Just does his role, plays it well. You'll get him cheap. 587. Is actually a decent price for a dude who's going to get you 60 every bloody week. Like, I'll take 60 every week. Seriously, I would. Mr. Ever Consistent. I just like the way he goes about it. He's just a no fuss, no complain, does the work, puts himself where he's got to, puts the team on his back when he has to. Like, I really like him, and I think he's so hard done by. He's so underrated, but he's just so consistent. But he's 0% owned, and because he's 583 and he's Brian Kelly, and no, he doesn't have that pure blown upside that a lot of others do. He just goes about his work. But there's certainly something to think about at 60 average at 583. And they're about the only ones I'm interested. We've already spoken about Fermor as well.
Jesse, CCWs.
Yeah, I'm going to pretty much echo a lot of what Trav said. I really like Brian Kelly, and he's never owned. He's like a budget version of Gagai in a way. He's just solid. Base is good, super reliable, 100k cheaper than Gagai, for about 10 points less than Gagai. But that's every single week. He's never a pain in the ass. I feel like if you just wanted that lockdown 60-point plus kind of game, like, yeah, geez, he's so good, and no one ever has him. It's crazy. Philip Sammy averaged just under him too. Like, he's super underrated as well. Always really generous super coach game, I think, both of the two of them. I really like Camperera, 1% ownership. I think, yeah, it's a bit rough for him. Just a try scorer. That's just an out-and-out try scorer. I mean, it's super fun to watch. The floor without the tries is really low, but when they're coming, which he's always up there, like if he's not leading, yeah, exactly. Like, he scores bangers. He's always in and around that top try scorer argument as well. So, like, they definitely come for him. It's a very busy edge, that side he's on. I always like him as an option regardless. I just don't think I'd want to buy him at 500. He's more of like that budget buy, but I just don't think it's not realistic. It's not going to happen. He scores too many tries for it. Yeah, look, they're pretty reliable. The Carter Gordon thing's a bit funny. I just don't see, like, we're already talking about where does Brimson fit? And he's definitely a first team player, and we're trying to talk about where Carter Gordon fits at the same time. Like, there's too many options at the moment. You would have to imagine, like, where does he go in Jojo Fafita's spot if he's going to get in there? Someone's going to have to go to the centers, or the wing, sorry. And then you've got Philip Sammy potentially. He didn't play that many games last year. He was only 13. So there's an option there. I just don't know. There's too many. There's way too many options. Yeah, not really super viable. Hey.
Yeah, I think it's, again, just wait for team lists and stuff for the Titans, which we're going to have to wait into round 2 to see how this lineup takes shape, because, again, it seems like both the forwards and the backs, there's so many options. It's just we're a lot of uncertainties, and that's not always ideal when you're trying to plan your Supercoach teams. You're not trying to pick teams and players who you're hoping are picked, and you want to pick players that you're confident, all right, this guy is locked into his role, and we can bank off his money and his points that he's going to make. Fullback, big debate here. I know you two are very, very keen on this player. So obviously Jaden Campbell's the dual 5'8". The one we're going to be talking about, Keanu Keaney, 707K. I'll warn you all now, these two have not stopped talking about Keaney to the point where I've just almost going to have to put a Keaney ban on these two, because they're ultimate fanboys now, and rightly so, but I don't know. It's a lot, boys. Talk to me. Why are you so high on Keaney?
Because he's a weapon. Yeah. What's not to love? Trevor, I'll let you get your piece. You had him last year. I envied you a lot for that. How good was it?
It was really good, except for when they dropped him. And he got injured a little bit, and that pissed me off. But then they brought him back, and I didn't have him, and he gets 124, 51, 88, and 86, and I'm pretty happy to have that if I had him. So yeah, but I did have him through the peak of his powers. He got that 132 against the Broncos, that 112 against the Tigers, the 153 against New Zealand, and I was pretty happy a Keeney owner. And he just skyrocketed in price, and he let me do so much. It was a quick trade in, and it was end up having to be a quick trade out, but I made 200K off it. So, well, not quite 200K. So it was very good. I'm super keen on Keeney. As you have said, I think he locked that spot last year. And I said right from the get-go when I picked him up that Desi just needs to say, Keeney, this is your spot. And unfortunately, he got rid of him. But then brought him back. But he really just needs to sit there and say, Keeney, you are our fullback for 2025. And I don't care how you play, unless you're a dog and you dog it up. It's your spot, like just sit there and just do it. And he showed how freaking good he is and how big of a weapon he is when he played for New Zealand in the summer. So I think it's, I think it's a no-brainer in terms of that we need to have a really good look at him. He's 1% owned. Now, a lot of that's going to be because he's 700K. A lot of that's going to be because he's got that first round bye, then he plays the Dogs. And a lot of that's going to be obviously because he's not a superstar fullback, but he's definitely under the radar. And we need, I'm a bit worried. I don't want to talk about him too much because I want him to stay under the radar. But yeah, he's a gun.
It's Keeney season. He's on. He could be huge, man. Like, you look at him, his base, he averaged, with base and power, he averaged 48 last year. For a fullback, for a little fella, like that's astronomical numbers. You're talking like 19 for Reece Walsh, and you've got 48 for Keeney. Like, it's just insane. 4.5 tackle busts a game, 1.25 offloads a game last year. Point per minute, basically, pretty much 1 point per minute. Like, just insane numbers, man. For his first season, like, you just see that getting better and better. I love him, I reckon he's insane. I think the Titans will do much better just to lock him down and keep him as the number one and avoid the headache and the discussion around Brimson or Campbell taking the one and just let him have it and make it his. And we'll just see him go to a new level because I think he has a monstrous future. And I'm so high on him, eh? I think I definitely want him. I don't know how to make it happen though. I don't know if he's that cheaper third fullback flex and you just deal with a round one bye, or if you just let the rubbish fixtures in the beginning sort of get out of the way and then get him in at some point. But I'll be looking at him every week, not owning him, thinking, is this going to be another 150? Because even in the games where he didn't turn up and go, 130, 115, 130 or 150, whatever it was, he was scoring basically 70. Like, there was a lot of 60s and 70s in that mix, and there was very few low scores. It's just that he started those first few 2 or 3 games like in the 30s. I don't think they were big minute games. So, yeah, look, dude, really good, eh? Really keen. Really keen.
Really keen. He came in round 10. So he played round 3, played 80 minutes, got 35 against the Bulldogs. Then he didn't play. Came in round 10 against the Cowboys, got 80 minutes, got 36. Played Newcastle, got 80 minutes, got 44. Played the Broncos, got 80 minutes, exploded, 132. Played 80 minutes against South, got 43. Played 80 minutes against, and then they're all 80 minutes bar one game, 112, and then the 100. Like, he's like, you take out the 22 where he only got 27 minutes. I think that was the injury game in round 19 against Para. And
he played the following week though.
He did, yeah, but I think he missed that for some sort of injury. Which, on a 72 average, you take that game out, that 72 average is surely going to be 80 above. Like, that's redonkulous.
Yeah,
and we're potentially getting him at 700K. I don't mind. I actually, Jesse said before, like, I want to save a trade. In my first few rounds, I'm okay. I'm okay making corrective trades and doing those sorts of things. I'm all right to have Keeney not in my team. And come round 4, if I watch that he does some explosive shit in round 2 and 3, I'm quite comfortable, depending on how the Pongers, Drinkwater, and Turbo that I've currently got in my fullback go, of dropping them down to Keeney just to try and get some cash if one of them doesn't work out. Like, Keeney just provides so many really good options, because I think Keeney's going to score. Someone might not. Someone might fail. So there's a really easy drop down target. And at 700K, there's also a really easy option if you do go a Hammer or a Pappy, or even lower and try and find that cheaper pod or whatever. Or even if you do Iongi and you're not happy with what he does, getting to Keeney is a bit easier than obviously getting to the turbos and things. So Keeney just provides so many options for us in the next few rounds to start the year.
I love cherry picking games as well. I'm just dropping ones that I don't like, and I think you can kind of do that with him at the beginning, because everything was so broken apart. You take out the round 1, the 33 points that game, and then round 3, because these are pretty much his first 2 starting games at fullback as well. And then there was no game for him until round 10, and that was against the Cows. And, you can say just take his very early games out in the 10-week gap and then get him back in there. And if you just drop them, he averaged 86 for the season.
Did you drop the 22 that he got injured?
Yes, I did. Yeah, just by minutes as well. So, you take out the injury-affected game, you take out the very early starting games between the massive break for the 10 weeks before he actually got into a consistent run of football. And then he was rolling, and it was on. So it's very hard to look at average stats like that, because you're basically just getting rid of the ones you don't like. But in a consistent stretch from round 11 basically to the end of the season, in non-injury affected games, averaged 86. That's huge. Like that's up there with the very, very best fullbacks in the comp. 700K, yeah.
I've sat back here and I've listened to listen. I've got to help the viewers out, the listeners out. I've pre-warned everyone. You two need to go and just chill out. Keano Keeney is a gun, a superstar. You've all made very valid points. You're both very, very valid. Just can we have a woosah for a second with Mr.
Sure.
Keeney?
Be the voice of reason. Convince us otherwise, because I know, you're talking about the discussion. You put Reece Walsh in the same discussion as Keano Keeney. No, I think Keeney's better.
I'll be picking Keeney every day of the week, which 100%. Is hence me going back to saying I don't think Walsh is even in the conversation of fullbacks. I don't think he's anywhere near it. I would have Walsh as like my 10th choice at Supercoach fullback. I have no time for it.
In my cherry-picked games of this around 11 to 25, he averaged base and power 53 points for a fullback. That's without tries. Attacking stats. It's just madness. He does so much work. Complete opposite to what you're going to get out of it.
86 puts him above Dylan Edwards.
Yeah, and that's without goal kicking, which Edwards had.
Highest fullback. And yes, Edwards got his inflated score of 85 because he goal kicked.
Yeah, and his tons were solid tons. They weren't just 101. He got 132, 153, 124. Yeah, dude. This guy can go friggin' massive, man. Bigger than most.
So basically, if you can't afford 3 guns, then you could feel pretty confident having Keeney in your side, I reckon. I think that's what you're both trying to say there. He's a very, very good option.
20 minutes talking about the immense value of Keano Keeney, and I'd spend another 20 minutes doing it again.
Yeah, I've got to stop this. Again, thank you to TC Coolers for jumping on board this year, being our sponsors for our weekly question segment for both podcasts, the Tuesday night one and our Wednesday night Supercoach one. A couple of questions tonight. So Jason Murphy is part of our Legends group. Again, guys, just go over Facebook subscriber, $2.99 a month. So much exclusive stuff. It's ridiculous. The 5'8" position has, in my opinion, been the most difficult to fill, with the ceiling being high for the top 5 players and base points being a tried and true strategy to start the season. Who do you think is the most optimal player to start with? Wow.
It's very opinion based, eh? That's
big time.
We're all going to have different ones. Yeah.
I'll go straight. I'll let you have a quick second. I just think Metcalf. He's cheaper. He's got the goal kicking. I just think
Maybe.
I'm not that excited with 5'8"
Maybe
now.
And nor is Metcalf. And nor is Metcalf actually locked in. And you've got Barnett there, so surely Barnett. I think Barnett's a better kicker, isn't he? But
Hannah Boyd as well.
Metcalf's locked in.
He's not. No, he's not.
He'd be a heavy favourite, but either way, like,
but he's not locked.
Yeah,
no,
it's hard.
He would be.
Tanner Boyd's also in the discussion, and Tanner Boyd will get the kicking before Metcalf does if he gets in the spot for sure. And then I'd love to see Barnett kick, because bloody hell, that's a good option if he is. Yeah, look, I'm definitely keen on Metcalf for sure. I think there's good upside and value there, but again, it's ifs. That's the problem. You play with these ifs. Like, I like Adam Dewey personally. I think he's got more upside potentially than Metcalf does, but he's a center who I'm relying on getting goal kicking, plays for the Tigers. Like, there's so many things there that you're like, oh crap. Look, it's just depending on how much you want to spend. Like, if you want consistency and value, I guess, in a duel, Dylan Brown, 65 points a week, not bad. I only expect it to get better. Are you spending $650 there though? Or are you trying to look for value? Because there is I don't think realistically there's a great deal of value at 5'8" with anyone. I think they kind of just are what they are.
I disagree with that point.
There's a couple that you expect a bit of upside from, but there's no one that's screaming like a 205k Galvin from last year. You know what I mean? Like, you don't get that lucky.
No.
You know, Dearden, we expect to have a better year. You're still spending 600k on him.
Yeah.
So, like, it's not cheap. I think it's good. There's definitely good points to be made, but yeah, you kind of price accordingly. I really like Cameron Munster. I think Munster at 600k is a bargain. So there's another one, again, 600k. So it's a freaking hard position to be having this like discussion about, isn't it?
Trav, who you got?
Dearden. No, I'm very, very keen on Dearden. I'm very happy to have him plugged in there, and off I go. I've had teams where I've got Dearden and Metcalf sitting there. I've got teams where I've dropped Metcalf out and went right down to enough because I kind of had to, just to see what I can do with the rest of my teams. But either way, the common denominator there is I've got Dearden sitting there. So I'm very keen to have Dearden just sit there. If you're going to spend, I think Dearden is the best option for anyone at any price from there up.
Pete Markham, another subscriber. I love seeing all these subscribers here now. This is fantastic. I love you guys, so appreciate it. Storm players irrelevant until round 5 with the bye. Jesse?
You can never make a Storm player irrelevant, really, can you? I think even with the bye, they're too good to ignore, especially the guns. There's definitely irrelevant players, or not Supercoach relevant in general. I think everybody in that side is definitely relevant for the team, but for Supercoach, what, you're going to not have Eli Katoa because of a bye? And then the Panthers game, like, you know, he's a freak. There's so many of them. You know, there's good value in their mid-ranges as well. You know, you like your Howless and that kind of thing. I think they're, even with the bye and the fixtures, I still think they're good value. It's not going to change anything. We now Storm preview, we even spoke like how many is too many, and that's factoring the fixtures. So it didn't really come into discussion too much with them because they are just so good. But yeah, basically that's kind of where I sit with them.
Trav, you got anything on your Storm players?
To answer the question, the key word in that question is irrelevant. So no, they will not be irrelevant. There's no way that they can be irrelevant. The bye, as I said to you, that I'm avoiding Storm players. The only one I've got is Howarth at the moment, just because I kind of really need to, because I need that mid price, and I'll make it work with 7 centers there. I'm avoiding them because they've got the bye at the end of the game against Panthers in the round 3. But to irrelevant is the key word. No.
You just got to be willing to trade them in. That's the thing. I think you can definitely start with a whole bunch of them and just ride it out. I don't think the Panthers game is going to be brutal. It's going to be an absolute, you know, they're not going to not score good or well enough. Irrelevant, Tosh.
Sure. Steve Lumley, another subscriber, mate. Appreciate it a lot. Thank you for the support. I'm pretty happy with my current team. Always making changes after listening to your podcast. Well, thank you, mate. Hopefully they're the good changes. Don't come back to us after about round 5 and be like, you guys have cost me the year. 5-8 proving the biggest headache. Currently sitting with Metcalf and Dewey. Your thoughts would be appreciated. Cheers. Well, we did just kind of cover it all. I think we've all said like Metcalf and Dewey. Like if that's both, like, not bad.
That's my current 5-8 right now, Metcalf and Dewey. They're the best options, I think, in the mid 400s, and the 600 is too far away. So it's like, do you go Metcalf and Dewey, or do you go a gun and enough? It just depends, really, overall. But I'm pretty happy with Metcalf and Dewey. I think they'll do enough of a job.
Trav?
Yeah, like it. I don't mind it. I'm just still a few questions around Metcalf, but you've got it's sort of, it's not taking a huge risk, but it's not taking a no risk kind of thing either. So, and the fact is you don't have enough, and there's no rookie 5-8s really. So you kind of got to find someone to put in unless you take it enough. So yeah, it's a good play at this point in time, but this is really, really 5-8's probably the biggest TLT dependent position because
you can correct. You can correct it a lot in a week either too. Like you can just go, if those two don't hit and they're both out or whatever, you can just drop them both and just go gun enough and just be done with it.
Yep.
Again, thank you to TC Coolers who have been fantastic. Thank you for the support. Go ahead, reach out to them if you do need some coolers. If you have your own business or something, you want to start getting some coolers for yourselves, please reach out. Let them know that we sent you over there. That's it. That was a much bigger episode than I anticipated. I didn't think looking into that we would go for as long as we did, I guess. But there was some surprising little twists and talking points along the way, which we always find our way to bring up, which is why I think you all love listening to us. So I hope you all enjoyed this one. Let us know in the comments. Let us know if someone now becomes a bit of an option that you weren't thinking of. Tell us if you are keeny on anything. So that would be handy as well. But yeah, until next week, that's basically it, guys. Thank you for listening. We'll catch you all the legends over in the Legends chat. And we'll catch you all in the comments for throughout the weekly posts.
See you.
Cheers.